right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the January 5th, 2026 work session. I will ask Commissioner Pittman if you'll please start us out in an invocation.
Pray for the. Okay, let's pray. Almighty God, our Father, we thank you for your love for us, your goodness to us, and all the blessings that you've bestowed upon us, but most especially for our Savior and our Lord Jesus Christ, whose birth we've just recently celebrated. Lord, we thank you that you loved us enough to give your own Son in our place. We thank you, Lord, that you've allowed us to be able to live in a nation that is free. And we thank you, Lord, for the sacrifice of all those who have fought and died and suffered to make it so and to keep it that way. And Lord, we pray that you would bless all those in government. Lord, some we agree with, some we don't. But may they all come to know the Savior, Lord, that we may agree on your will together. And so, Lord, we pray that you would be present in this room tonight. We know that you're here, but make us know your presence, Lord. And help us, Father, by your Spirit to perceive and to do what is right and good in your sight. Not only here, but in the living of our lives. We pray it every day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you so much for doing that. And Happy New Year to everybody. I hope you had a great holiday and time off with your family. So I will call this meeting to order. First, I need a motion to approve the work session agenda with the changes on page 3.
So moved.
And a second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries 5-0. And we are going to move to our discussion items. The first one up is 3.1, Human Resources Agreement for Professional Recruitment Services. And we have Ms. Ashley.
Good evening,
Hey.
Commissioners. I am here tonight to introduce you to Steve Strauss. He's with Developmental Associates, and he is going to talk with you guys a little bit tonight about the selection process that Developmental Associates uses. So I'm just going to turn it over to him.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Lindsay and Board. Good to see you all. Happy New Year to everyone.
Thank you for joining
Wishing
us.
you a. Can you hear me?
Yep. Thank you for joining us.
You're quite welcome. Thank you so much. I assume what you'd like for me to do is explain our process to you. Would that be the case?
Yes, sir, that works.
Okay, great. All right. I don't know if Ms. Olvera is able to share the document I sent or whether I should do so myself. Should I do so? Okay, all right.
Yes, it's up there.
Okay. Let's see here.
Is there a way to share the screen with him? Steve, it's on the first page where it says our selection process, and it has job analysis and posting.
Okay, you have that displayed, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll just start with that. Thank you then. Okay, so first of all, let me just talk a little bit about our approach. The way we operate is we never make decisions for our clients. That is not our job. Our job is to get you the best information possible to make your decisions. And we have an approach that's not a traditional search process. We take a lot of pride in that because it does provide our clients with much better information to make their decisions. So as I walk you through each of the steps, you'll see that some aspects of what we do are consistent with the traditional search process. Other parts of it are quite different. And again, I'll discuss those differences as we proceed. So the first thing we always do is we begin with what's typically called a job analysis. It's really more of an organizational analysis. And why do we call it an organizational analysis? When you're hiring an executive like a county manager, you're not just concerned with what are the competencies that you're looking for in the position. There's a much bigger question that needs to be addressed, which are what are the major challenges facing the county? Challenges could be anything from staffing to technology to budgeting to economic development, whatever those might be. We want to understand what those challenges are. Why do we ask that question? Well, that's what executives are expected to do, is to accomplish organizational challenges, not just fill a position. So we get that input from a variety of sources. There are two that we definitely would need to get input from. That would be you as the Board of Commissioners. We also would want to get input from your leadership team and your staff as well. And there may be other sources that you'd like for us to reach out to as well, as you see there at step one. Very often our clients would like for us to meet with some groups of the public or send out a community-wide survey. We can get that input. We prefer to get the input from group sessions, meeting, for example, with the board and getting your input, meeting with the staff and getting their input. But because we can get a lot deeper information by having that kind of back and forth discussion. But surveys are also helpful. We ask the same questions in our surveys as we do in the focus group sessions that we conduct. We would work that out with you. Whom would you like for us to include? How would you like for us to include them? Once we've received that information, we can put together a very attractive electronic brochure that highlights not only the position, but also the organization and the overall county. Because candidates are not just looking, particularly if you're ending up with candidates that are outside the organization, they're looking for a place to live, not just for a position. And so we want to emphasize that as part of our recruitment process. We typically put the job ad together within about 3 days of our last input session. And then we send that to you all for your review. We ask boards to turn that around pretty quickly, and then we begin our recruitment process. We recruit using 4 different methods. The first method we use is we reach out to candidates that we think would be good fits for the position. We've been doing this now for over 20 years. We have thousands of contacts that we reach out to. We are the only search firm that is based in North Carolina. And we have a particularly strong network in North Carolina and the Southeast. We do a lot of work in adjacent states as well, but we particularly focus on this particular region of the country, but we recruit nationally. We also obviously would post on key professional websites, such as the North Carolina Association of County Managers and the International City Managers Association. Variety. We have typically about 7 or 8 groups that we recruit for city manager, or I should say associations. We also use LinkedIn and social media to reach out, and they're also, particularly in North Carolina, there's some listservs of local government managers that we connect with as well. We recruit for about 30 days, and then we have our first screening meeting, as you see there at the top of the slide, with you all. We send you the information that we have on the candidates about 3 days prior to that meeting, so you all have an opportunity to review it. We also will put together a spreadsheet. Our Director of Operations, Holly Danford Bishop, is really excellent at putting together a spreadsheet that will summarize everything we've learned about each candidate, including she would do a Google search on each of the candidates and include that as part of that information on the spreadsheet. She would summarize what she learned through the Google search, but also provide you with links so you can go in and read articles directly about any of the candidates firsthand if you'd like to do so. That initial screening meeting takes typically about an hour and a half. It's the first of 3 sessions we would have with you all once we get the process started. And we ask you at that session to reduce the number of candidates down to no more than 15. At that point, we then conduct screening interviews with each of those candidates. This is a very rigorous, state-of-the-art interview process. It's not just small talk with a candidate, but it's focused questions based on exactly what those key challenges are that are facing the county. We design structured questions for every candidate. We also have a structured rating guide. We would use one of our senior consultants or retired local government executives. We have several who've been North Carolina county managers, also from other states as well. But we would probably use a former North Carolina county manager to conduct those interviews. We would also get information that pops up in that initial screen where when you see information on a candidate, you're going to have questions like, why did they leave this position so quickly? Why are they interested in coming to Cabarrus County? Those kinds of things. We would get that individualized information for you as well. We meet with you again for our second screening meeting, again after the phone interviews, and we also do a survey of all the candidates. We provide that information to you again about 3 or 4 days in advance. Then we have the second screening meeting with you all again, which typically takes about an hour to an hour and a half. Share the results of those interviews, have the actual interviewer there to answer any questions you might have. You see the narrative of each of the candidates. You see their scores in terms of how the interviewer assessed them. Answer any questions that you may have. And then we ask you to reduce the number of candidates at that secondary screening meeting down to about 5. Now, at this point, we're about 45 days out. Once the job ad's approved, 30-day recruitment, meet with you, get your feedback. 2 weeks later, we're having our second screening meeting after conducting those interviews, and then we're ready for our next stage of the process. Now, what most boards do when they're hiring candidates is at this stage, they simply bring them in for final interviews. Our approach is we think interviews are essential. I just discussed having screening interviews during that secondary screen. And you're going to want to interview your top 2 or 3 candidates in person in Cabarrus County. But we have another step that other search firms do not include, and that's called a skills assessment. Now, here's the thinking about that. All of us have conducted interviews. We all think we can understand all the competencies that a candidate has from an interview. If I can just lay eyeballs on the candidate, I can assess them. Most of the time, folks are fooling themselves with that type of assumption because there's a lot of information about candidate competencies that cannot be directly revealed in an interview. Now, let's talk about what you can learn in an interview. When the candidate answers any questions that you have, you can assess their command of the English language. That is a very critical competency for a county manager. Secondly, you can find out what they know. So you can ask them questions about budgeting, about economic development, about reducing staff turnover and so forth. Find out what they know as well. A third competency you can assess in an interview, if you use a best practice interview will include behavioral-based questions. Those are questions that put the candidates in situations that they faced in the past. Tell us about the most challenging situation you've had with a board member. How'd you go about dealing with that? What's the most difficult performance situation you've ever had with a staff member? How'd you go about managing that? When candidates answer that question, you get their judgment and decision-making. What do they do? Who do they involve? How do they go about making their decision? Let's talk about the competencies you cannot directly observe in an interview. At the end of an interview, you can guess about leadership. Now, you may say, well, wait a minute, I can ask some questions about leadership and so forth. But what you get when you ask leadership questions is their leadership knowledge or philosophy, what they say about leadership. Yeah, thank you. We're at skill evaluations. You do not directly observe leadership skills in an interview. It's impossible to do. That's not what an interview does. Interview is about talk. It's not about the walk or the actions of the candidate. There's another critical set of competencies you cannot observe in an interview. You don't know how well the candidate can write. I'm confident that the board is going to want candidates that write well. You're going to want candidates that can manage staff well. You're going to want candidates that can run meetings effectively because executives spend at least 60% of their day in meetings. And you don't know if they have those competencies in an interview. You do know if they have those competencies if you can directly observe them. And that's why we structure these skills exercises. Those would include some sort of a written assignment typically, again, based on a key challenge facing the county, whether it's budget, economic development, whatever it might be. We also design skill-based exercises like a coaching exercise or meeting facilitation. And what we do is we have the candidates actually go through those exercises, demonstrating directly key leadership skills like problem solving, conflict resolution, listening, and problem solving skills, and so forth. And we do that over a 2-day time period. And the way we manage it is we recruit other local government executives who are subject matter experts. They don't have a stake in terms of who gets the job, but they are experts in terms of what it takes to be an effective county manager. We train them on our system. We train them on an objective behavioral rating system that we have so that you're not getting opinions, you're getting facts. And then we run that process over a 2-day time period. At the end of the second day, which is always a Friday because we avoid early part of the week because candidates and potential assessors always have board meetings that muck up the schedule. So we always do this on a Thursday and Friday. At the end of the day on Friday, we would meet with the board and have each team of assessors share their feedback on each of the candidates. So we're not telling you what the skill set is of the candidates. You're getting that directly from the folks that assessed each of the candidates and, again, who are subject matter experts. That debrief typically takes about 2.5 hours. At the end of that session, we also provide you with emotional intelligence testing results. Typically, those correlate with what we learned in those exercises, so that gives you a lot more confidence about, again, competencies like problem solving, conflict resolution, listening skills, and so forth. At that point, our clients typically reduce the number of candidates down to 2 or 3 that they would like to invite to come in person to the county and go through a final interview. We can then tailor specific questions for you all to ask the candidates based on how they performed. We also would design a presentation. This is something we just started doing in January of 2025. We design a presentation for the boards that interview their final manager, and that really enriches what you learn from a candidate. Again, the presentation is based on actual issues facing the county. And we also provide you with some questions to ask after that presentation, so you're giving every candidate the same opportunity to be successful. By the end of that, our boards typically find, clients typically find that they're comfortable with making an offer to a candidate. At that point, there's a background investigation, a conditional offer of employment, a background investigation, and then that typically after a notice to their current employer, if it's an external candidate, then they come on board. So to get to the point where you know whom your final candidate would be, that's probably about a 9-week process. Again, 4 weeks or 30 days to recruit, 2 weeks to get through to the secondary screen. 2 weeks later, we run the skills assessment. A week to 10 days later, you bring the finalists in for your interviews and presentations. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I don't know if any of you all have any questions about our process. I'm certainly glad to answer any that you may have.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Commissioners, do you have any questions to ask at this time? Commissioner Pittman?
Yes, Madam Chair, I was just wondering how soon the process could begin.
How soon can it begin? I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you.
That's
Yes.
correct.
We could start immediately. We could start. It takes a little bit of time. We try to take all the work off of your staff. We hear from a lot of folks that when they use other firms, they dump a lot of work on staff. We don't think that's appropriate at all. We do need a little bit of time from your staff to help get things scheduled so we can get those initial input sessions, and then at that point, we're off and running. That typically takes about a week or two. If you tell us we're ready to start within a week or two, we could start it. And then, as I said, it's about once we get that last input session complete, which we can typically do in a couple of days, we're then off and running. And again, you should know who you would like to appoint about 9 to 10 weeks out.
Okay, thank you. I
So we
assume
could-
staff would be
we could
glad to hear
essentially
that.
start immediately. I'm sorry.
I said I appreciate it. I'm sure staff would be glad to hear that.
I'm sure.
Do you guys have any other questions?
What's the
Commissioner
cost?
Jones? So you can speak to this. I think in the contract that we looked at, it was about 27,000. Was that right?
Yes, our expense would be 27.6. Yes,
Any of it variable cost, or is it all fixed?
It's 25.5 is the fixed cost, and then we have variable costs of up to 2,100, and that's for the emotional intelligence thing primarily. However, there is one other $350 fee, which is also unique, that we provide coaching to your successful candidate. The reason we do that is we have a lot of stake in their success. We want to support them to be successful. We've gleaned a lot of information about the candidate through these skills exercises and through emotional intelligence testing. One of the beauties of emotional intelligence testing is that when you get your results, if there's an area that you're not happy with, you can improve in that area. It's a contrast of IQ, where whatever your mathematical aptitude is what it is. But if, for example, you learn from your emotional intelligence profile that you could do a better job of problem solving, we can work with that new manager to improve on their problem solving skills, or their conflict resolution skills, or their listening skills, whatever it may be. And again, we want them to be successful. So 5 emotional intelligence inventories that we administer and analyze for you at $350 each, and then 1 coaching session at $350. So that's an additional $2,100.
And during your recruiting process and stuff, when you make out the promotional information, do you put a salary range, or you put a definite salary on it?
Do we determine the salary range? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I didn't know if you work with a salary range, or you work with a definite salary to attract the candidates.
Yeah, we would be glad to do some research for you all. Recommend a hiring range based on again, market factors like your location, size of the county, and so forth. But we would be glad to do that if that would be helpful to you.
I don't have any other questions.
So, Madam Chair, I recommended this group because they helped us in our search in Harrisburg to replace our town manager. I really like that they're objective. It's data, it's not feelings, it's not emotions, anything like that. I'll point out a few things that you can look at in their proposal that they sent us. One specifically, they did for Savannah City Council, which had a very divided board. And no offense to anybody on this board, but the great thing about this group is they just kind of take the politics out of it, and you just get a really good candidate. I'd also point out on page 5 of their proposal, if the candidate leaves within a year, they will do this again for you at no cost. So they stand behind their work, and I really appreciate that. And then the last thing I would note is I would recommend that you do the 26,600, but reserve the right, if we have internal candidates, to do coaching for the internal candidates who applied but were not selected, so that you can help bring up any other staff members and help them just improve using their method, whether or not they're selected or not. So I would recommend maybe an add-on that you can just discuss later, depending on what the results are. But I'm certainly in support of it.
I appreciate your saying that, and if I could just piggyback on a couple of things that you said. Yes, when people evaluate people, they always get subjective That's just our natural human reaction. When you get subjective, you make errors. And I'm not saying our process is foolproof. We did do a study a year and a half ago on our success rate. We used 3 criteria to evaluate our success. Is the candidate still in the position they were placed? Or did they stay for at least 5 years before they moved on? Or number 3, did they get promoted to a higher level position? Because we don't just do managers, we do other executive levels as well. And our track record actually really surprised me even. It was 96.4. So there are errors, and I can tell you I have a lot of heartburn over the 3.6 errors that we've had. But at the same time, this is way beyond the success rate of what you get from a typical hiring process.
All right, did y'all have any other questions? Commissioner Pittman?
You know me, I'm always uncomfortable with spending more money out of the taxpayer's pocket. This may be necessary. I kind of wish it didn't cost so much, but I know in the size budget we have, this doesn't sound like a lot. To me, it sounds like a lot. But I guess if y'all want to do this, we got to have somebody. If Kelly's gonna want to retire anytime soon, we got to get somebody. So I guess we have to do it.
And I will definitely say I agree with you on the spending the money piece of it. I do think, though, that this is a fairly reasonable price based on some of the other consultants and fees that I've seen be used for other things that have used consultants. This is actually a lot less expensive than I expected it to be. And I certainly, Commissioner Patrick, I appreciate you recommending them, and I certainly value your opinion on this and using them in Harrisburg. And the town manager of Harrisburg is wonderful. So I do think that speaks volumes for this. So we will place this on the action agenda for the 20th, and then we will take a vote on it for then, unless I have any other questions or concerns. Yes, sir.
Well, I didn't know if Larry wanted to, I'm new here, so I don't know how this works. This gets put on the next agenda? I thought you wanted to get going.
Yeah, on the 20th. So normally with the work session, unless we make a motion to suspend the rules, we vote during the business meetings. These are always discussion items unless we've been asked to vote on them during the work session. Now, if somebody wants to make a motion to suspend the rules and you guys want to go ahead and take a vote on this, I'm okay with that as well. I think the sooner we get started with this process, obviously, the sooner we can get us a county manager in place, so.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules and we can take action.
Okay,
Second.
all right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Discuss that real quick.
Sure.
From my understanding, the reason we've always waited till the regular meeting to vote on it is because this is the first time that the community is hearing this. This is the first time the citizens are hearing it. So by us voting at the regular session, it allows them to come voice their opinion during public comment before we actually make a vote on it. Because if we slam it through now, that's what it looks like. It looks like we're slamming it through without them being able to have a chance to come and share their opinions with us.
And that's a fair concern.
I'll retract my motion. I will make sure the public has the right to voice their opinion. So I'll
Okay.
retract my
And
Thank you. That's
are you
kind of
good
what I was
with
going
that
to
as
say. I
well?
agree with Kenny on that.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Are we fair? Okay, awesome. All
Sorry,
right,
I'm used to this
Okay.
work session stuff.
gotcha. All right, so we'll put that on the action agenda for the 20th. Ashley, did you have anything else that you
No,
wanted to add? Thank
that
you,
was
ma'am.
it.
I
Thank you,
appreciate you.
Steve, for
Thank you,
being
Steve.
here.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you, and we'd be delighted to work with you. So thank you.
Great, thank you so much. All right.
Okay.
Board, moving on to item 4.1, we're going to have a budget FY27 update from Rosh. Hey, Rosh, how are you?
Doing well,
Happy New Year.
thank you. I know we have a new commissioner, so my name is Raj Khatri, and I'm the Budget Director. So, good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm going to provide you an FY27 budget update today, but I wanted to first start by sharing with you where the money comes from and where the money goes. And I'm going to be using the FY26 adopted budget numbers to present that. Is this working? Am I doing something wrong here? Okay. Okay. So first, where does the money come from? About 62% of our money comes from our property taxes. About 17, one other qualification, this is the general funds combined. So we have just general operating fund and the community investment fund combined. Property taxes about 62%, sales and other taxes about 17%. Intergovernmental, which is our grant money, about 7%. Sales and services, 4%. Permits and fees, 2%. Other financing sources, 6%. In the sales and services, the majority of that, a good portion of that comes from our ambulance fees, deputy reimbursements, and I believe the EDC reimbursement also comes in there. Permits and fees is mainly our construction standards and register of deeds. The other financing sources, the 6%, is our contribution from fund balance. We do get money, we started doing that last year, where any economic incentive grant dollars that we're going to be paying out, we get from our fund balance that's been reserved for that. So as you know, for the economic incentives, we collect 100% upfront, and then the payment doesn't happen till a few years afterwards. And so when that payment is going to happen in that year, we take our fund balance that was reserved, and we pay that from our fund balance. We're not using recurring dollars for that. Also included in the other financing sources in the 6% is we had a $2.4 million one-time contribution from our self-insurance fund. We had a comfortable fund balance there, so we felt comfortable enough to pull some money back into the general fund from there. So last year, we used $2.4 million from there. And of course, our investment earnings is the 2%. Any questions on the revenue side of things?
Explain that fund balance a little bit.
Okay, so we are appropriating a portion of our fund balance in our budget. And so last year, there were two major pieces of it. About $2.4 million came from a fund balance that was reserved for economic incentive grants. So when we collect those monies, we collect 100%, but we set aside the 85% that we need to pay for in the future years. So that's put in a reserve. So last year, when we were balancing the budget, we were looking to see what other areas can we look at, and I said, okay, we have a reserve, we're gonna use that reserve, because that's what it's there for. So we started budgeting that, so we're budgeting $2.4 million of our fund balance from that, and then we also use the one-time contribution. So every year when we have a self-insurance fund, like workers' comp or health insurance, a portion of the annual salaries contributes to that fund to pay for that. So our workers' comp fund over the years has built a fund balance. And we had a comfortable fund balance, so we were able to pull some money back to the general fund as a one-time contribution. So we used about $2.4 million of that. So those are two major items that make up the other financing sources.
So that fund balance, it's held where?
It's held, it's basically like your savings account. So if you have a home savings account, that's what Once your revenues exceed your expenses every year, that starts building your fund balance, so starts building your savings account, and that's what I'm talking about.
I have a question. You said you collect monies up front
So
from whom?
from the taxpayer. So for example, whoever we have an economic incentive grant from, that we've awarded a grant to, say Eli Lilly or any other company like that, we collect 100% of the taxes up front. And then.
Not from Lilly. Not from Lilly.
From Lilly.
Collect their taxes up
Yeah.
front, okay.
So say they owe us $100 million, $50 million, we collect $50 million up front. When the time comes where they qualify for the repayment back, which is the 85% contract deal that you may have with some of these companies, that gets paid. So what happens when we collect 100%, we set aside the 85% that's going to be due to them in a future year. It becomes part of a reserve fund balance. So in the year when I'm told, okay, we're going to pay $3 million for economic incentive grants, I'm going to take $3 million from that reserve instead of taking it from the recurring revenues.
So they get the tax bill and
They pay the 100% up front. We pay them back in the
As-
year they qualify.
for the years?
Yeah.
So you're just basically setting it aside and paying them back as they go until their contract, whatever you agreed to, is
Yeah.
complete?
Correct, and they have to go through an audit process to qualify to get those funds back.
Yeah, okay.
So we hold 85% until they reach it. We go ahead and spend.
The
the
15% is
50%,
ours,
it
yeah,
goes in our-
yeah.
Our regular fund. It's not put in
No,
fund
that's,
balance.
no, it's not.
And are those restricted funds for us? Do you use them for investment, or you must hold them?
The 85%? 85% is because we have a contract to pay these people, so that's
Yeah.
set aside, reserved to pay them.
And they're set in some other
Interest, I
balance?
think you're saying the interest
Oh,
that you earned on it, is it an investment?
No,
Or is it?
the interest is money that we can spend on anything.
But you can't invest capital, quote-unquote capital.
We are investing the capital.
Okay, so you
Any
can't.
money that's in fund balance, we are investing.
Okay.
And whatever interest is earned does not have to go back to paying the economic incentives.
Understood.
But there are some limitations on what you can invest in.
Yes, they are. We have a policy on investments, and I think Jim can probably explain it better than I can.
Well, I figured we've got to protect that risk.
Yes.
Yeah, we do, and we know that bill is coming due because they've gone through their audit and all of that, so we have time to withdraw those funds from the investment in order to pay it when the time comes.
So when it happens, I'm just trying to understand.
Sure,
So we have this fund balance,
yes.
and we put, do it simple, got $100 paid in from Lilly. We put $85 in this fund balance. They have certain criteria they've got to meet, money-wise.
Yep.
And then when they meet that criteria, we start paying out by year then? We don't
No.
pay out the 4 years that they pay before they meet that criteria.
David, would you
The
come up
details of
and
it,
give the
David can
details of
probably
how
explain
it
better than I
actually
can.
plays out?
So that's done on a tax year basis. So in your example, the $85 that we hold is for a particular tax year. So the $100 would be one tax year. We hold 85% of that. The audit process that we go through is after they have completed construction, go through the process, that we can confirm what we're auditing is that they've paid the full amount of taxes, that we've assessed the full amount of taxes they should pay, that they've paid that. And everything that they've agreed to do in the terms of the incentive agreement, job creation, investment, all those things that they've agreed to as the contract, we audit that that's done, and then we make that payment. And that goes on for multiple years if it's a multiple-year agreement. So-
Based on each particular agreement.
And each agreement is potentially different.
And if they don't hit it, we get to keep the 85?
That's correct. Those are taxes collected and earned, and that's
And they've got-
that's then fund balance that is treated like the rest of the fund balance.
And they've got to hit those targets by a certain time frame, or they're out, right?
That's, the agreement is pretty strict in the requirements that they have to meet, and we are in charge of administering and making sure that they are meeting those requirements.
Yes, and some of those have caps, so they may pay, we may hit the max before the end of the term.
In that fund balance, is there any other money in it other than taxes that go back on economic incentive?
So the fund balance is made up of a whole bunch of different
Okay.
reserves. This portion of it is reserved just for the economic incentives, but there's other fund balances.
Right. But this particular one is the big one, or the big money, or is there,
No,
I think
I mean, I don't know.
no.
No, this is a small
The funds
portion.
related to the incentive grant programs are a small portion of the overall fund
Overall
balance.
fund.
Oh, the whole fund balance. Okay. All right.
Any other questions? Please continue.
Yeah. If I can get this thing to move. Just move it to the next slide. All right, so where does the money go? As you can see, about 39% of our money goes to education. That includes paying the debt. Public safety, 21%, human services, 15%, general government, 10%, capital and debt, so that would be other debt other than the education debt and our contribution to the capital fund. Culture and recreation, 3%, economic physical development, 2%, environmental protection, 0.2%. So that's where our money goes.
With 39% of that going to schools, that's the biggest part of our budget. Has there been any talks with legislation or the city councils? City councils are the one building the apartments, the townhomes, bringing all the kids here, yet they have to fund nothing for the school system. We fund it. Has there been any talks to see if they can share some of the burden to where maybe they slow down all the apartments and townhomes?
We're certainly welcome to approach them. I will tell you that the reverse question has come to us regarding infrastructure and whether we're willing to participate in infrastructure. So we could get in a situation where we're just kind of exchanging dollars towards something, but it's certainly a conversation that we could have.
I'd like to have it at some point.
Okay.
I've also provided a list of mandatory services or required programs, and I think Kelly had sent you all additional details based on some questions that were received. So unless you need, I won't spend too much time going through each one of these items because I'm not the expert in all these items. But these are mandatory services: public health services, mental health, developmental disabilities, substance abuse services. Can you go to the next one? Law enforcement, the sheriff's office, jail and detention services, court facilities, emergency management, tax assessment and collection, public education, elections, register of deeds, human services, which includes social services and our public assistance programs, and of course, adopting and maintaining a balanced budget.
So I will say, and I do appreciate the statutes being tied to these. At some point, I probably would like to get into a greater depth of conversation regarding, like, what this truly means that we have to provide for the county. We don't necessarily have to get into that tonight because I know we're not prepared for all of that. But I do think there's a bigger discussion to be had on what is mandated for the county moving forward. Do y'all have any questions regarding that?
I do. I'm following up on that. Is there a way, or have you ever broken down out of that percentage of 39% for education, how much of that percentage is mandated or in each of these departments?
I provided some information in, I don't have a specific number, but there's so many different laws that tell us what we should be doing. The main statute says we're supposed to be providing them the facilities and the maintenance for the facilities. But beyond that, a lot has happened, and there's statutes that once you start paying them for operations and all that, then if we don't agree on the funding in any year, we have, the way most of, the way that statute works is, we'll end up paying them on a per ADM basis what we paid them last year, plus, I believe, a rate of inflation that's calculated by a formula that the state has provided in statute. So even though some of the things may not be mandatory, if we've been providing them funding for it, we may be required to continue providing them funding at a certain ADM level, ADM meaning average daily membership per, so whatever we pay them per ADM, we may be required to continue funding them at that level.
So, I don't need it now, but could we get that statute too?
Yeah, I think that.
The one that says we have to claw it back? Because I read a bunch of them, really, I read all of them. They're all, I don't want to say purposefully, but they're vague for a reason, right? So that it can work for kind of everybody. But, yeah, as far as I could tell from the school one, it was buildings and maintenance, and that's it. But we are providing a lot of operational, and maybe that's fine. But I didn't see the one about they're going to claw it back with ADM if we don't do that. Or
So-
how long that lasts once we do it. Is that a year so they can get their ducks in a row, and then the following year, we're back to whatever we want to be? Like, those are the questions that I think you were bringing up.
Right.
That it'd be nice to go to, in more depth on this. I know that's not the purpose of this presentation, but I did read all those statutes, and they're very, it's like, okay, yes, you're mandated to do this, but they don't say what the mandates require below it, right? What programs below it are mandated. It's, as far as I can tell, whatever you decide fits that
Yeah,
definition.
unfortunately, the education funding is not clear. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of different statutes and things that they refer to, and even court cases. So I think that blog that we might have shared with you has some of that in that. It also gets into the dispute part of it. So if for some reason they say, okay, I don't think the county is providing us sufficient funding, we may end up going into what they call a dispute, and then if we're not able to work out our differences, then that statute kicks in. And we have to provide minimum certain amount of funding to them, and it's based on what we were providing them the previous year.
Did we
As a base.
lose in court on something like that, or some kind of, in the
Yes,
past?
there have been some court cases. I think we did a number of years ago get involved in a court case, and Union County has more recently. There's case law out here that's driving part of this outside of just statutes. And we can.
Could you look at that, Doug?
Yeah, we can get Doug to
look into
kind of
that?
pull some of that in.
There's a whole statutory process for if the county and the school board are unable to agree on funding. There's a very specific process of how that plays out. You have to agree to some temporary funding until you go to court. And then, of course, once you go to court, then it's up to the judge.
Yeah, I just don't want to go to court.
But there is a process where if you say, here's what we're funding you, period, take it or leave it, they don't have to take it, they can go through that
Right.
process if they want to.
Any other
Thank you.
questions on that? All right.
We're good?
Yes, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I just need to say, of course, as usual, I'm going to continue to push to get rid of the EDC in our budget. No further, I mean, I know we got to pay the incentives that's already put in place, because we don't want those huge lawsuits we get, but no new incentives. I'm going to be pushing for that. Now, there's a committee in the State House that's looking at property tax reform. And I've been in conversation with some folks about that. I plan to go and speak to them when they allow public comment. I'm going to be pushing for those things, that you can't give money, taxpayer funding, to a non-government entity for a non-government responsibility, which would include EDC and that sort of thing. I've been told those things are already on their agenda. So I don't know how far I'll get with them, but some of them are already thinking that way. And I'm hoping we can succeed in making those things illegal. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pittman. Any other comments? All right. Raj?
All right. As you all know, we have begun our FY '27 budget process. Our budget process has two major phases. We have the continuation budget, and then we have our expansion/reduction phase of the budget. We began our training for our departments for the FY '27 budget in mid-November, and that kicked off our continuation phase. And they had till mid-December to complete the continuation phase of the budget, so our departments submit their continuation budgets. Continuation meaning keeping the lights on, providing the same level of service they provide currently next year. What would it cost them to run their departments? And they've provided that information to us. We're in the process of reviewing that information with the holiday break and all that. We haven't had a chance to fully vet those numbers, so we're working on those. And in our meeting next week, the 2x2 sessions, we'll be able to provide you some update with those numbers. For this presentation, what I'm going to use is the 5-year plan that we have in the budget, and using those assumptions built into the numbers. Go ahead. Go ahead for the next. So on the revenue side, what we have here is property taxes for FY '27 going to $285 million. That is using a 2% assumption that's built into our 5-year plan. For the sales and other taxes, we're using a 1% increase. For intergovernmental grants, we're not really showing any increase there. Permits and fees, 2%. Sales and services, 2%. Investments, we don't have an increase shown in there. Miscellaneous and other financing sources. For the other financing sources, we've discussed that earlier. Last year, we used the $2.4 million from our self-insurance fund, so that goes away since it was a one-time item. And then what we've added in there is a $1.5 million increase in the economic incentive grants that we'll be paying. But again, the revenue side of that has already picked up what we'll need to cover that. And that's why we have that decrease there. Any questions on the revenues? On the expenses, in our 5-year plan, we have assumptions for our expenses also. For personnel and employee benefits, we had a 6% increase, and that's to cover COLA, merit, retirement rate increase, and also health insurance. Supplies, 3%, other operation costs, 3%, maintenance and repair, also 3%, other services and charges, 3%. When you come to the one that says 9.7 contributions to other funds or activities, that mainly covers our, for the most part, covers our educational partners. So I've built in what we have in our 5-year plan, a 4.5% increase for that. And then also Cabarrus Health Alliance, we've added a 4% increase for them. Let me think what else is included in that number. Those are the main ones, education and CHA. And then capital outlay, again, a 3% increase shown there. So when you look at revenues and expenditures in our 5-year plan, we have a deficit currently of $13.7 million. Again, we're working on seeing what the continuation budgets have brought in, and we'll give you an update on that next week.
Okey dokey. So I've got some questions.
Okay.
So regarding employee benefits,
Yes.
I know we talked about this last year regarding employee benefits and assessing kind of what the current way that it's done. I know that some governments are changing the way that they have done it now. The state does kind of a tiering system based on salary and what employees have to pay their portion of. Is this something that we're looking into currently, and when will we get the info on that?
It is our year to go out to market again for insurance, so we are currently going back out to market. We have been working with our broker to determine if being self-insured is still the best policy, or should we be fully insured. We have looked at a number of different things. We are doing some research on the tiering and what they used, what mechanism they used to do that, because there are some laws around what the max amount that you can charge your employees based on income, so we're doing some research on that. So we should have all that ready for you by the retreat, because I think it takes to around the end of January for us to get all of our bids back from our from the vendors, and we'll be looking at plan changes, what we need to do to hopefully control some cost.
So the request is already out there for the bids?
Correct.
Okay.
And you can, once you get that back, you can work on structure of your plan, with them. That's just more of a larger scale, I guess, RFP that we put out there, RFQ, to get the information, and then we kind of pair back from there and figure out what we need to do. And this happens every year. We evaluate the plan to see if there's adjustments that need to be made. And then I think it's 3 or 4 years is when we go out for the vendors to compete.
Okay.
Who's your broker and how long have we been with them?
Is Ashley still here? So USI is, I think, the broker. We've been using Cigna for our insurance. We've had Cigna for a number of years. USI, we changed to them, I believe it was about 6 or 8 years ago.
So we've been using Cigna for,
They had to bid to get in, but that has been the best product that has been offered pricing wise. And the other part of that is, I guess, how they interact with the hospitals and all that. And so, yes, we've been with them quite a while. I can't remember exactly how many years, but they've been winning bids. It hasn't just been awarded and we just stay with them. They've been competing.
gotcha. And then my other question was regarding contributions to other funds and activities. So you said that is predominantly CHA and education. Is that right?
That is correct.
So I guess my question is,
Well, it's
For-
CHA education, and then also the other big one is we do send money from the general fund to the CIF fund. $37 million goes to the CIF fund every year.
So that funding goes from the general fund to the CIF fund to pay our debt. And that's where we contain all of that information. So it allows us to control it and understand. It puts you on a debt diet, in essence. If you want to do more than that, then you have to change something in order to do that, bring in more revenue in some way if you want to exceed the debt that's available in that CIF fund, the way it's structured.
So you're saying you service the debt out of
Correct,
that number there?
correct.
Okay.
Commissioner Pittman?
I just want to state for the record, and the reason I'm doing this is because a couple months ago, I got a check. It wasn't much, but it was $4 more than I normally get paid. And I reminded them, you don't give me any raises. So I want everybody to understand that. Whoever's dealing with this, do not give me any raises. Also, I don't accept the insurance because I'm already on Humana, and I don't accept retirement because I'm already getting Social Security and 2 other retirement checks. I don't need the people of Cabarrus County to have to contribute to my retirement. So I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay.
All right, next. All right, so we have come up with a few ideas on how we can try to contain the gap that we have right now with the, or bring down the deficit some. The first one didn't help us any at this point. We were looking at property tax revenues. I always consult with our tax office to see where we are. Is the 2% assumption still good? And right now, the best number I could get from them was 1.16%, so that's actually a reduction to what I had shown previously in our property tax revenue by about $1.92 million. Again, that number will change as the budget process moves forward. It's still really early in the process, and I don't blame the tax office for not getting too ambitious with that number at this point, but hopefully we'll see that decreased number shrink some, or even completely be eliminated by the time we get to the retreat and our other milestones that we have in the budget process.
So that's based on just growth projections?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
We typically have been budgeting a 2%. Prior to last year, we were budgeting a 3% increase. But last year, we dropped it to 2% after talking with the tax office and all, so.
So is that an indicator of slowing economic growth? And if that's the case, why would our sales tax assumption and investment income assumptions be revised upwards?
Well, the sales tax, if you looked at the information I had sent in the package, you could see how much more we generated every year in sales tax. And what we've been doing is we've been adding a 1% increase on sales tax to the budget number and not to the actuals number. So we're there's quite a bit of room for us still to be slightly less conservative and still meet our target here. So I think I've also checked with our finance office. They feel comfortable with the numbers I'm presenting. And if you look at, like, on sales tax, for FY '23, we collected $7.5 million more than we had budgeted. In '24, we collected $2.3 million more. This last year, we collected $4.8 million more than we budgeted. And we're basing our budget increase on the budget number, not the actuals.
So we're just changing our internal calculus on projections based on previous years that we've budgeted more conservative than you think we should, but still,
we have a history
still
of that.
conservative enough to
Yes.
weather a storm should it occur, like, let's say, an AI bubble?
I'm not the expert on AI bubble, but
I'm not either.
it's hard to tell. I mean, but you have to build your assumptions on some history. And that's what we're trying to do here. If we're consistently collecting more than we budgeted, there's a little room for us to loosen that up some. So that's the strategy here. Same thing on the investment income. We're suggesting increasing that by $2.5 million. We've been collecting in 2023, we collected $6.8 million more than we budgeted. This 2024, $10.9 million more than we budgeted. This past year, $5.8 million more than we budgeted. So finance felt comfortable, even though interest rates may go down a little bit, they still feel comfortable that we'll be able to reach our target here.
So, just,
Commissioner Jones, will you turn your mic
oh,
on?
it's not on. Sorry, I forget about that thing. All right, I'm maybe talking simple. I always understand things simply. It looks like we're like a dog chasing its tail. If we're only showing our revenue increases 2 to 3% a year with inflation, and then all the other departments and stuff increasing like 6% over expenditures and stuff, we'll never keep up.
True.
Okay.
So,
I'd just like to point out to a question earlier, on the property tax revenue assumption, you mentioned is that growth? It's actually an assumption of growth in assessed value, so it's not necessarily just additional growth. There is effect to the valuation of property every year from a market standpoint. So our personal property, business personal property is all depreciating assets that depreciate every year. So from that standpoint, on a starting basis, we're down from the year prior just in value unless there's new investment on that aspect. So real estate is typically building growth because our revaluations are what change valuation. So you're looking at building growth and the assumptions that come there, but there's a lot of variables at this point in the game in terms of what amounts will be excluded, what programs people will sign up for that reduce that valuation. So we're trying to account for all of that, but it's not specifically just a growth number, it's a change in the assessment from year to year. So,
And then again, we're recommending using $2.5 million from the insurance, self-insurance fund, because the fund balance is still fairly stable. It's a one-time item again this year. Any questions?
Same fund you did last year?
Yes.
Did you do it the year before?
We have two self-insurance funds. We have the workers' comp, and then we have our property liability. And the previous year, we did, I believe, the property liability one.
So in the past 3 years, we've done it. Okay.
Are we restricted on the sales tax or the occupancy tax on which one we can spend that money on? Which one's restricted?
The sales-
occupancy,
Go ahead.
and there's some sales tax that's restricted also.
Goes to transportation, right?
Well, I don't think we have any of that one, but some
No,
of
it-
ours is earmarked for schools.
Schools.
How do we go about changing that to where we can spend it on other things?
We'd have to go to the state legislature. It's all determined by them. We do directly take those funds that are earmarked and put it into the CIF fund to pay debt on school packages, so.
How
it's-
long, from my understanding, we've asked for years to be able to spend that money on other things. Do you know how long we've
I-
been asking?
Don't know. I know it's been a while, and I know there was also some requests to open up the transportation sales tax, but to my knowledge, that has not been done.
Any more questions on this?
Anybody? All right, no, I don't think so.
Excellent. So on the expense side, I don't know if you understand what the salary lapse is. So what that is every year when we budget for salaries, we're budgeting at 100%. And we're not spending 100%, so we see a lapse. Last year, I believe we had a lapse of somewhere around $6-7 million. And this last year, what we did to help close the gap this previous year was budget salaries at 98.75% instead of 100%. So we budgeted a 1.25% lapse. So I'm actually basically reducing my salary budget by that amount, because I know I'm not gonna spend all of it. Historically, we've not spent all of it. We have vacancies, we have people leave during the year. By the time we rehire them, there's that lapse that happens. So that's what that is. Right now, we're monitoring that, and we feel comfortable that we're able to up that to 1.5%. So we budget 98.5% instead of 100%. As I mentioned earlier, we're working on looking at our continuation budget, so we'll give you an update on that coming up. creation of a county contingency fund. So the idea here is we would, instead of departments budgeting a cushion in their budgets, we're telling them budget as tight as possible. And if you run into an emergency that you need additional funding, we have a contingency fund that the county manager will be able to access to provide them the funding they need. And we're gonna target this to critical areas like the sheriff's office or EMS or infrastructure asset management. If they run into an emergency during the year, you know, say we have a huge snowfall and we have to melt the ice or something, and they don't have the money to budget it to do that, then the county manager can reach into the contingency fund or if, you know, a fund balance reserve and cover that. That's the idea. So we don't have everybody budgeting or padding their budgets. We want all of that out of there, and we have one source that we can go to if we need to.
So they currently budget for that in their own budget, and so we'll pull that out. Do you have any idea what that would be that you pull out?
We're still working on
Yeah,
that.
okay.
They would still have some in there because obviously all of those functions exist. But there are certain things that, you know, if HVAC goes out in the middle of summer, we got to fix it, and we got to fix it right then. And so rather than annually over budget a little bit for the emergency, have a savings account set aside for items like that. Inmate medical is something that varies greatly over time. That would be maybe an area where we would want to look at it. There's some areas that we could do that and have that funding available so that they don't have to overshoot the funding annually. So it could reduce the annual budget, but have that savings available and just have to replenish it if we had need to use it during the year.
So if they budgeted last year for something and they didn't have to use it, where's that money?
Goes into fund balance.
Ends up in
Fund balance. Okay.
I would just say I'm completely against the contingency fund. I think that each department should budget as tight as they possibly can anyway, and it promotes accountability. And if they have to come back to us because of an emergency, that's fine. And it's not like we're going to say no to HVAC. But if I told one of my project managers, you have $100 to go buy new equipment, but don't worry, I've got 20 saved over here just in case, they think they have $120. And so I want to see that accountability, and I think anybody in a leadership position would want them to have to come to you and explain why they need it and why it wasn't budgeted properly, not just because it could be a learning experience for the following year. And so that's how I feel about that contingency fund. Let them shrink their budgets and just get tight. I mean, your next slide is still 9.3.
Yes.
Yeah.
Commissioner Pittman?
Madam Chair, this sounds a lot to me like when I was pastor at McKenna Presbyterian Church. We had this thing where, you know, the congregation had to vote on the budget, what we were going to spend and that sort of thing. But if an emergency came up, they approved for the elders in the church to be able to spend up to $500 on that emergency without consulting the congregation. But no one member of that session could make that decision. I, as pastor, certainly couldn't make it. Had to consult with the elders, and they would decide together. So I share some of Commissioner Patrick's concern, and at the same time, I also think if you're going to do something like this, no disrespect to Kelly, I think she does a good job, but it shouldn't be one person making that decision. It should be, she should have to consult somebody before she does that. So, yeah, I'm kind of uncomfortable with that too. Thank you.
Do we have, so with this salary lapse that's budgeted every year, and you said a lot of it has to do with, we have an increase in it because we have positions that haven't been filled. Is that right?
It's a combination of vacancies and people. You have a higher paid person leaving, a new person comes in, they get being paid a lower salary. And so things like that, all of that contributes to the lapse salary.
When is the last time that we did a deep dive into whether or not those positions that we have already that might be vacant we could just maybe eliminate them because they're not necessary.
We did review them last year and are in the process of reviewing them again. And last year was the first time we budgeted lap salary. That was the first time we attempted this approach.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we've never budgeted lapse except for this last year.
I will say a number of the vacancies that we currently have are in the sheriff's department and child welfare. They are not, for the most part, administrative type jobs or anything like that. They are what I would call kind of more critical positions, but they're positions that have a lot of turnover and are difficult to fill. A lot of those are detention positions.
Okay. Any other questions?
All right, going to the next slide. So this is a recap of where we are. So I showed you the 13.7 million earlier. If we do all of the different pieces mentioned in closing the gap ideas, that would have an impact of about a 4.3 million on that deficit. So our deficit, using all of those ideas, would be about 9.3 million. Any questions?
I mean, it gives me heartburn, obviously. This is not,
Me too.
yeah, it's not what you want to see when you're looking at a
No.
budget for projected next year or the year after.
I will say we're very early in the budget process, and so there's, a lot of, part of it you're working off projections, part of it you're working off actual numbers entered, some of that hasn't been vetted, so there's a lot yet to happen.
It still gives me heartburn. Commissioner Jones?
One quick question. Is there anything with the state not having a budget or anything from the state that could come down and affect
So
what we're doing here?
we could get impacted by the education budget if, depending on what they vote in as a pay increase and all that. We have built, the education budget provided to us earlier this year and that we funded had I believe, 3% increase built in. And so if they come in higher than that, then the schools may be looking to us to fund some of that. Again, it'd be nice if the budget was settled at the state level, but right now they're still in limbo.
And that could hit us in the current fiscal year we are in right now, because if it goes retroactive for any reason.
Because they did say, when we had the last meeting that we talked about this, it was 1.5 million per every 1% increase.
I believe it's about 1 point.
For every 1%.
So, yeah, we're looking, I think,
Over 3%.
yeah,
So,
we're talking near $4 million impact.
All right, next slide. Right, so if I put the 1.6% property tax number in the 5-year plan and leave the rest of the years at 2%, this is what the deficits look like. 27 through 31. Again, using the same 5-year plan assumptions on everything else.
So this is with an assumption of property tax increase.
Property tax going up by 1.16% for FY '27, and then for the future years, I'm using a 2% rate.
But it's not a tax increase, it's a value of what we collect.
That's correct.
It's not a tax increase.
Not a tax increase, I'm
Um,
looking at our projected assumptions built into our
Correct.
revenue stream here.
I want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So if we would have gone revenue neutral at the revaluation, would that red number be higher or lower?
If we went revenue neutral, that would probably be up by more than 20-something million dollars, yeah. And all of the numbers there would be even higher.
You said it out loud.
Unless you reduce the budget significantly, and I think we can.
we're struggling now to find 13 million, so where would we find an extra 20 million to cut out of the budget? That's the reality that we sit in. I mean, we're looking at all these different ideas, and that's to cover a $13 million deficit.
I don't have all the answers, obviously, but a lot of that would come from no more payments to EDC or incentives, no new payments for that, cutting that stuff out, and finding anything that's in the budget that has nothing to do with the government and cutting it out. Any waste we can find, cutting it out. I don't know how far we go with that, but that's a place to start, is getting rid of anything that's none of our business.
And I'm going to respectfully disagree with you on the economic development, because if you take Philip Morris, for example, we were getting a flat rate for the land when they were paying those taxes. Eli Lilly came and plopped a building on there, so 15% is already more than we were collecting on just the land. You want to do away with it, then we're going to lose the extra that we get. Do we have to give out a little bit of their taxpayer dollars back? Yes. But that 15% we're keeping is still more than the flat rate we were getting for just the land to begin with.
I'll still say any business wants to come in here needs to do it on their own dime, not on the backs of our taxpayers, period.
All right, any other questions for Raj?
The rest of
I
the
would
package
just
just
say-
has, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, just personally, I'm used to seeing budgets that are in the black 3 to 5 years out, and in the red, 6, 7, 8, maybe tolerable. So I guess I'm just looking for Kelly and your staff to just get creative on what we can do, if that's consolidating departments, doubling up what they can do if we're too disparate and things aren't being done efficiently. Let's see how efficient we are. Kelly, you sent me some numbers on kind of staff per capita. We're way up there compared to other counties. Some other metrics that I've looked at that was provided to me, we're outside of our peer groups, and I would just like to know like why that is, and what that data could be. And these are groups that are established by state economists, nerds. I don't know what it's above my head, let's say, but all I can do is react to the things that they present.
Yeah, so some of the comparison information, so like the per capita staffing,
Yeah.
previous boards have made decisions to invest in different things. And so you can compare it to other counties, they may not have invested in libraries, they may not have invested in parks. I was looking at one that had way more EDC staff involved, and they were actually county staff. So different boards have decided for their county to invest in different things. So some of those choices in the past are where we're at today and what we have within the framework to work in. So that some of those comparisons kind of lie in those areas, if that helps.
No, it definitely helps. I guess I can only react to the data I'm provided, and if it needs to be normalized to take some of those things out, then it probably should be normalized so that I can react to apples. If you're telling me it's apples and oranges and I can't rely on it, then it's really no use to me, if that makes sense.
It does. I mean, unfortunately, most comparisons between counties it's hard to get apples to apples on any topic, just variety of reasons, but.
Anyone else?
The rest of the package just has key important dates, and I won't go through those. We could cover those next week in our one-on-one, on our 2x2 meetings.
Do you guys have any questions about the dates that are on this? Okay. All right. Thank you, Raj.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Look forward to working with you.
Yep.
All right. So we will move on to 5.1, which is active living in park, soccer complex contract addendum with Byron Hagler. How are you doing, Byron?
Doing well, thank you so
Thank you.
much. Good evening, Commissioners. Before you this evening is a contract addendum between Cabarrus County, the City of Concord, and Charlotte Soccer Association. This addendum would extend the current agreement from its April 26th expiration date through June 26th, solely to align the contract with the county's fiscal year, so a 2-month extension. The original agreement was a 25-year contract under which the City of Concord and Charlotte Soccer Association jointly contributed $600,000 towards the development of the 11-field soccer complex at Frank Liss Park. In exchange, each entity was granted priority use of 5 soccer fields. Over the past year, county staff and the Active Living and Parks Commission have been engaged in discussions and negotiations regarding future considerations related to this agreement. Those items will be brought before you in the coming months. The action before you tonight is limited. The addendum makes no changes to the terms, conditions, or use provisions of the existing contract, other than extending the end date to June 30th, 2026, and has been reviewed and created by the county attorney. If approved, this addendum will be presented to Concord City Council for consideration next month. Thank you for the considerations. Can I answer any questions for you?
Any questions, commissioners? Commissioner Pittman?
First of all, is the Charlotte Soccer Association or Soccer Academy, is that something that's contained within Mecklenburg County, except they're using our fields?
I'm not the best one to speak to the overall business platform of that, but they have a subgroup that is solely housed and operates out of Cabarrus County. They're just, the larger entity itself is Charlotte Soccer Association.
Okay, because I was just wondering why Charlotte or Mecklenburg County providing for this within their own jurisdiction. Is there a good reason for that? Do you know?
They are utilizing fields within Mecklenburg County as well. This is just a larger group providing a soccer-based program in many different counties.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got one. So it's a 25-year agreement, and this addendum is just to align it with the fiscal year. What is the plan?
So the plan is, so we have been in the process of negotiations over the last year as looking at different ways to make sure that we are looking at revenue options for the county to bring in as much as we possibly can for that complex. So right now, that is the plan, is to take those negotiations before the Active Living and Parks Commission, the Active Living and Parks Commission to make that recommendation to you all as a board to hear those proposals. But right now, I will at least tell you the longest term that we are considering is a 1-year agreement for anything with the known changes of Frank Liss Park and needing a secondary entrance and those areas like that, to where we do not feel comfortable moving past anything longer than a 1-year agreement at this time.
So you think we'll see this again in a couple months?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Are we okay with putting on this on the consent agenda? Yeah, okay. Thank you, Byron.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Have a great night.
All right, we will move on to 5.2, boards and committees. This is a removal for Early Childhood Task Force Advisory Board. Do we have anybody to speak on that? Is everybody okay with just putting that on the consent agenda for the removal? Okay. All right, and we'll move to 5.3. Courtney Wyatt, is she here? Okay, Todd? All right, so 5.3, we have an appointment to the Fair Advisory.
Yes, so this one is, we had a couple vacancies due to Courtney and another person leaving the board. So the Fair Advisory Board met last month and put forth Jane Cawthon as a person to do that. And she's obviously, she was with the county for years and is somebody who works in the ag area, so we thought she would be a great replacement.
Okay, you guys okay with the consent agenda for both fair appointments? Okay, great, thank you. Thanks, Todd. All right, moving on to 5.5, boards and committees, Home and Community Care Block Grant Advisory Committee removal. I'm good with the removal piece of it, just going on consent. Are you guys? Okay, and then we'll move to, is Tammy here? So we have 2 appointments for that. Did you guys have any questions for Tammy regarding those? Tammy, we just wanted to see your pretty face. Come on up here.
Thank you.
So,
Appreciate it.
thank you so much. All right, we'll put that on the consent agenda. There you go. All right, so moving on to 5.8, Human Services Advisory Appointment. Did y'all have any questions regarding that appointment as well? None? All right. Thank you, Elise. Moving on. We'll put that on the consent as well. And tourism appointment. Did y'all have any questions with that appointment?
No, but I do have a question. I was asked by a resident who's applied for multiple boards and there are current vacancies on there, and that they applied like 6 months to a year ago. Are we checking those, or do you just want me to get up with you after the meeting and to follow up to see why?
Yes, we'll see what boards they applied
Yeah,
for.
if there's vacancies.
And if they were a qualified person, depending on what board they, some of those have qualified positions. For example, the one that we were just looking at, it had to be a hotelier. So we'll take a look at it and see what the situation is.
Thank you. All right, and we will move to 5.10. Susie, this is regarding the weatherization grant, and we will have to suspend the rules on this one.
Good evening. This item is actually approval, acceptance, and then approval of a contract with DOE. That is correct, that it is fiscal year '26. So this is the first opportunity that we have had where they sent us the grant, the actual contract. Typically, we would see those first quarter after our budget is adopted, August, September-ish. They are extremely late this year. So that is why I'm asking for you all to suspend the rules this evening to vote on it. It is a standard contract. It has been through legal. Legal is good with the contract. So this would be accepting the funds, and if you are to consider it this evening, it would allow us to go ahead and route the contract, get that back to the state, because we can't do work unless we actually have a contract in place.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Unless anybody has a strong objection and a good reason not to, I would move that we do that tonight.
Yes,
And
sir.
suspend the rules and do that.
Okay.
All
Does
right,
anybody have any?
Make a motion, to suspend the rules of procedure?
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then I need a motion to approve the acceptance of the funding for FY '26 to authorize the county manager or his designee, her designee, to enter into an agreement with the state upon review by the county attorney to adopt the budget amendments to reflect corrected funding and to allow staff to proceed with implementation of the associated program activities.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that carries 5-0. Thank you very
Susie.
much. All right, moving on to 5.11, cooperative extension poultry equipment rental. Tracy?
Thank you. I'm passing a little handout around because with Commissioner Patrick, welcome to the board. Wanted to kind of give an overview of what we are in cooperative extension, so it helps you make this decision a little bit better. I think those are extras, yeah. So my name is Tracy Lecomte. I'm the County Extension Director. We are field faculty staff members for NC State University in cooperation with the county and also NC State University. So we are state contracted employees that are contracted to work here in Cabarrus County through the interest of food and agriculture. So that looks like a lot of different things and a lot of different things in different counties. So when you're comparing county to county, it's oftentimes apples to oranges, literally more like apples to pumpkins and sweet potatoes. But, every county does a little bit different in the world of agriculture. And we are part of that state budget that is still waiting on a state budget within our state employees as well. So just so you kind of understand who we are and what we do, but we are housed here in Cabarrus County. All of our staff members are here in Cabarrus County, focused on serving everybody here in Cabarrus County through the lens of food, nutrition, agriculture, and then you might as well know our youth development program, 4-H, is our a lot of program that a lot of people know about. So I've invited Sarah here tonight to speak a little bit about one of the big things that we do within Extension is that we work to meet the needs. And so we are tasked with meeting the needs of the community members within agriculture. And we've seen a big influx and interest in backyard poultry. And so we have a proposal for you tonight to consider. We'd like your feedback on such things, and know that we have we're working on putting a proposal together. Then you'll see it again next month at your meetings. So I'll let Sarah talk a little bit about the proposal.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Newman. I currently serve as the Cabarrus County Livestock and Field Crops Agent, so I work with all things agriculture and farmers. So today, again, like Tracy said, we're asking for guidance on a project we're working on, renting out small-scale poultry processing equipment to the public under a safety-focused program. Of course, we've been in talks with both the legal department and the risk department, looking at what this looks like going forward, but of course, we just want kind of your thoughts and expectations moving forward. So a little bit about that. Over the last few years, there's been a large increase in kind of the homesteading movement, the local foods, people really getting into backyard agriculture, which is, of course, a really big point to the Cabarrus County Cooperative Extension mission. In particular, backyard chickens is a huge part of that. That does come with the City of Concord ordinance of allowing backyard chickens within the city limits. So with that, I've seen a huge increase in backyard poultry education. It's a really huge part of my job now. Because of that, we've hosted a good amount of programming in the past year. So I've hosted Backyard Chicken Series, what does that responsible ownership look like, as well as a backyard poultry processing demonstration, where both me and field faculty of NC State work to educate on that proper process. This growth not only signals kind of the strength we have within our cooperative extension program, but exposes some of those gaps. So at this time, there are no commercial poultry processing facilities available locally for small producers or backyard growers. This leaves residents with limited options. We want our residents to be able to responsibly, humanely raise poultry. However, we need to provide them with access to be able to do that. Without proper education, without that equipment, we don't want people to use without proper tools and raise concerns related to food safety, animal welfare, sanitation, things like that. That's where we see a really great challenge and opportunity for cooperative extension to step in. So we already have equipment at our office that I've used for demonstration. That's the exsanguination station, the scalder, and the plucker. Our proposal is to create a limited structured rental program for this existing equipment. Use of the equipment would require mandatory training, adherence to written and safety sanitation protocols, and a signed user agreement consistent with both NC State University standards as well as Cabarrus County standards. This approach allows Extension to address this major barrier for small agricultural growers, while maintaining oversight, clear expectations of the program. It also aligns with NC State's and NC Cooperative Extension's educational mission, helping residents raise livestock and connect to their local food systems, both safely, humanely, and responsibly. We do recognize, however, that this shared equipment risk management is going to be very critical. The proposed program includes, and your handout today, includes a draft of our detailed setup, safety guidelines, cleaning inspection requirements, and clear renter responsibilities for equipment use, transportation, return. Extension staff, would oversee checkout and check-in procedures, inspect equipment, be able to assess cleaning or damage fees if the standards of that equipment are not met. These safeguards are designed to protect both the county, the university, and the public. Today, we're really here asking for guidance and feedback on this program before we move forward with both the legal department and the risk department drafting a full safety and procedures document. So I'm more than welcome to answer any questions. We thank you for your time.
Commissioner Pittman?
As a country boy stuck in the city for 35 years, I'm going to say it sounds good to me. Let's move forward.
My only concern is liability.
Sure.
We got to make sure we cover ourselves liability-wise on, this is a very dangerous operation that these people will be
Correct.
performing.
Yep.
We want to make sure that we're doing it in the most safe and humane way for everybody involved. And we have been working with our risk management team as well as legal department. And so they're aware of it. We've kind of started the ball rolling on it, but we wanted your guys' feedback before we moved forward with it. But yeah, that's definitely on both the university's part and the county. Both have a lot to lose. And so, you know, we are very aware of that in all the things that we do. Every time we set foot on a farm, there are inherent risks that come with the world of agriculture. And, you know, there's a lot of statutes that are out there that protect both the participant as well as the farmer, but then we want to make sure that we're protecting all parties involved, for sure.
And this is all equipment that we have already.
Correct, yeah, so this is equipment that we have, that we use for demonstration educational programming now. It is small scale, so there are larger equipment that is available through NC State that are in other counties that is a more of a full trailer of big scale things. And it's really meant for more of a 100+ bird processing. What we have is much more of a backyard flock, which fits much more within the municipality ordinances that we are currently using, or that we currently have within the county. It kind of fits more of our urban agriculture world of where we're at right now. Most producers in the backyard, you know, within ordinance are between 10 and 12 birds, and it's entirely too much to get the big mobile processing unit out to process that amount of animals.
And folks would have to come and pick up this equipment. That's completely on them, is that right? Like,
Correct.
We're not responsible for delivering.
Correct, yes.
This is all
Yeah.
just straight income.
Yeah, and so all of that will be laid out in the proposed document that we'll bring forth for next month. But yeah, that's our initial thoughts are that basically we do all the training, we do all the check all the boxes, and then it's yours. And when you take it to your site, you do as you will with it. You bring it back. It must meet our qualifications to come back in the door.
Would there be an increase in insurance because of the liability?
That is a good question for someone in the world of insurance and safety and risk. I saw John Bradley. He was here, but he must have walked out for a minute. Oh, no, there he is. I shall call him by
We
name.
will work on that with John and make sure.
I'm just wondering, like, with
Yeah.
the income that it brought in, would it be, would it make up the difference for whatever we're gonna have to pay in liability for insurance?
We have to apply for those policies depending on what the scope of work is here. So it really depends on what we're gonna be doing versus what we're doing, or what we're expecting the users to do. And typically, what we've discussed so far is basically hold harmless agreements, which would hopefully take a lot of that liability off of us to where our insurance rates would not escalate, but that depends on the renewal period as well, what the insurance company is requesting, but it would typically fall under our general liability insurance from this initial proposal. So
How many
we-
other counties are participating in something like the backyard poultry movement?
As we say, most urban counties, of course, this is a big movement, especially around the Charlotte area. As far as what counties have a mobile processing unit, I'd say most of the more populated counties in North Carolina have them. I'd say over half of
We
the
know
counties.
immediately Rowan and Union both have
Yeah.
them. Union counties is so busy, it doesn't leave you in Union County. It is specifically restricted to Union County. Stanley County does have theirs available for our folks to check out, and that can cross county lines. And that was something that we discussed too, is that this would probably not be able to cross county lines. It would serve only Cabarrus County residents. And so that would be limited, that is a limiting factor for it. As far as I know, Mecklenburg does not have that processing equipment, but they do have more co-ops that do different things in that world.
Do we have any kind of projected, at this point, kind of income of what this would bring in?
We had not discussed full schedule of fees. Clearly, we would have to have funds on there for replacement if something were damaged and those kind of things. The structured going rate was $50 for
$50
3-day
for the 3-day
rental.
rental,
And so, we were also discussing trying to figure out whether deposits versus a rental fee of all of those things, but basically it would just offset the cost of buying new equipment when this wears out. Similar to the way we do the seed drill and other rental equipment that we have for agricultural use.
So, I'm sorry, I think I'm just ignorant about the topic. Not chickens, I mean, we
That's
used
why
to-
we're
we
here.
used to
By
do-
all means, we happy to answer
But,
questions.
What is the relationship with Cabarrus County and Cooperative Extension that this requires our involvement at all? I'm just so ignorant about.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's a great thought.
Yeah, it is a complicated relationship. We are in a multiple party agreement, I would say. So they are employees of NC State. We do pay portions of salaries for some of the positions. And we provide them with training money, space, they're treated like a department budget-wise.
Okay.
And that is part of the agreement with NC State, that we house them and offer those things to them. So they are treated as a county department. So that is how the relationship is, how we assume kind of some of their responsibility as far as liability and things of that nature, because they're housed in our buildings. They are using, like, this equipment was, no doubt, purchased with county funds. So, we purchase training equipment, things like that for them through the county budget.
I guess I'd be curious to see if that liability can be shifted elsewhere.
Yeah.
It
The university
sounds like an
definitely
op-
carries it too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
would
is,
think so.
part of that, in the MOA is the cooperative part of it, right? The cooperative part is the counties cooperating with the state in that entity. And it's very similar, not unsimilar to the schools, that we are part of that mandated with the school partnership through the Moral Act. So there's different mandates with that as
And
well.
the director of the poultry unit's retiring, is he not, this year?
I don't know that. No, there you go.
Okay, just an odd.
By all means, yes, please.
It's okay. When Kelly asked me about it a few months ago, I was like, we do that?
Well, and that's why we're here too, it helps to educate you all on making those decisions. But the majority of our programming funds are funneled through the county versus funneling them through Raleigh. And so we have that privilege and appreciate that privilege of being able to be part and included in the county budget process. And so all of that, when she says that it comes from county funds, most of our county funds are offsetted by program income revenues that we generate to cover those costs.
Well, I say more power to anybody that wants to take part in all this. I will be happy to eat your chicken, but I'm not.
We get a lot of that, and that is fine, because education works both ways, right? You can learn what you are willing to do and learn what you are not willing to do.
That's right. Any other questions? Are we okay with putting this on the consent agenda, or do we need to even?
I think at this point, they're looking for consensus that you're willing to let them put forth a document to react to a policy that, we work with Doug and with John.
We willing to do that, guys? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think, because it's unfinished, they need to put together a fee schedule
Right.
and all that kind of stuff.
And I guess additionally, if there's something that you are concerned with, whether it's optics or things that we need to make sure that we put in that written document, so the liability from both the state and the county, we can look into that aspect of it too. But if there's any other things that need to be thought of that we weren't thinking of, just coming from a non-agricultural background, you might have a better idea of what we need to include. We do it every day, and so a lot of times we just forget what else we need to include.
So just for clarification, we're just giving them kind of consensus to move forward. We don't need to vote anything tonight.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, fine with that.
Okay.
All right. I
Thank you,
appreciate your
guys.
time.
Appreciate
Thank you for your
it.
feedback.
All right, so we'll move to 5.12, consideration for support of the Coalition Against Bigger Trucks with Kyle. Hey, Kyle, thanks for coming.
Good evening. I'm sure you've all read through the agenda item. County Manager Sifford was approached in October by Elizabeth Bolstead Riddler, who is the Regional Director for the Coalition Against Bigger Trucks. I played phone tag and email tag with her for several months and finally got on a virtual meeting with her along with some of our public safety folks. The Coalition Against Bigger Trucks is a nonprofit coalition of local government, law enforcement, public works, fire and EMS officials that opposes legislation to increase commercial truck size and weight on local streets and roads. Congress is putting together a new infrastructure base bill this fall to fund roads and bridges around the country. Representative McDowell serves on the House of Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. There's a chance that the bill would increase and create a so-called pilot project that would allow any state to increase truck weights to 80,000, from 80,000 pounds to 91,000. And on our interstates, it could be added to this bill. The coalition's ask is that we either send letters, adopt a resolution, or make a call to Congressman McDowell. And they specifically mentioned that they had spoken with you, Commissioner Pittman. So they wouldn't tell me which option they'd prefer more. I can tell you that Forsyth County on December 4th passed 6-1 to go ahead with the actual adoption. So not a letter, not a phone call, but actually adopting a resolution, and it's one of the attachments drafted as that. Couldn't find that much information on their website about other North Carolina jurisdictions, whether it be municipalities or counties, that were adopting them. I did see Lee. There are a lot of other local governments in the United States that are adopting them. I couldn't just find a lot on North Carolina. I was trying to get you a baseline of what other North Carolina counties were doing and so forth. At this point, Forsyth has been the one that's been portrayed to me, and I did watch all of those meetings.
Commissioner Pittman, would you mind also speaking on this too? I had asked
Glad to.
him to speak because he seemed much more familiar with this than I was.
Yes, the coalition has been in contact with me, and I have studied the information they've sent me very closely and had some strong feelings about it when I first heard what they were facing. But the information they gave me is fairly extensive. I like this resolution they've put together. I just want to share with you, in addition with supporting them directly through online communication, I did send, as they requested, a letter to Congressman McDowell. I want to share that with you. It's very brief. Representative McDowell, it has been brought to my attention that there is a new effort in Congress to pass legislation that would allow for much bigger trucks bearing much heavier loads than currently allowed on our state and local highways and roads. Having served on the Transportation Committee and the Appropriations Committee and the Subcommittee on Government Appropriations in the North Carolina House, I am writing to express my concern and opposition to any such legislation. Statistically, this is not a good idea in terms of stress and potential damage to our roadways, the potential for more devastating damage to other vehicles and injury and loss of life to other motorists in collisions, and the cost of repairs and maintenance to our roadways that would be necessitated by such a policy. This is just not a safe or sensible policy to pursue. For these reasons, I ask you to oppose this proposed change in law and policy. Please do what you can to oppose and defeat this effort in Congress. Sincerely, Larry G. Pittman, Cabarrus County Commissioner. And I was wondering, could we agree to put that resolution for an action agenda, on the action agenda for the 20th?
We can agree to put it on an action, or we can agree to do it as a consent if you guys are all okay with us doing the resolution.
Well, consent would be fine with me. if-
Yeah.
We're just doing resolutions just to show our support against it. I mean, it has no legal binding
Correct.
thing for roads around here or anything.
It's an accurate statement, and it's just one of the several solutions they offered. So it's
Okay.
what the board is pleasure right now.
Well, I'd like to see us put this on consent agenda then.
Well, I make a motion to suspend rules and we can approve it now if you want.
Well,
Do we
I'll
wanna
be glad
hear
to
from the
second
rest?
Do we
that.
want to hear
Put it
from the
on
community about it before we do that, maybe?
Well, if y'all want to say something.
I just don't know.
I don't know anything about it.
I
Is
don't know
this-
enough
Okay.
about it, I mean, it sounds, based on what you're saying, and based on the statistics that I've seen, and based on the fact that I know our infrastructure is horrendous, in some areas of the state, it sounds like a legitimate concern to have. I also just don't understand, and I'm, I guess, naive in this area regarding how does that affect the trucking companies and their freedoms to be able to do their services as they see fit. And the reason I ask that is because I remember there was a certain legislation that happened in Raleigh not too long ago with the shrimping industry, and it had to do with the destruction of the beaches up close. And so there was a lot of pushback regarding that. But that's also something that's causing, issues. And so I don't know, where does that take away the trucking company's personal freedom to be able to run their business as they see fit versus what we have in place now, or what they're potentially wanting to do later.
Well, as I see it, it's not restricting them from doing business. It's saying there are certain limitations that our roadways can withstand, and adding all this weight adds to the danger of potential collisions. I mean, when I used to work for Snyder Packaging, just driving a 26,000-pound weight, load truck for them, I couldn't believe how some people would just pull right in front of me, and to be right on. I almost had to stop to keep from hitting them. And what if I'd been driving a whole lot bigger truck, harder to stop? So I thought a lot about that with all this. And I just think, contrary to or different from the shrimping issue, the stuff where they were trying to shut down shrimping inside the coastal waters was a lot of hogwash. Those ships, those boats that they do shrimping on can't go 3 miles offshore. They're just not built for that. And so we needed to keep the shrimping allowed to be within shore. And it's just a lot of developers wanting to stop them, thinking they make more money developing properties near where they're doing the shrimping. And it would damage that industry. So, yeah, that's a legitimate concern on that legislation. You don't want to damage the shrimping industry. A lot of our people down on the coast depend on that. But this is a different thing. You can still do business as a trucking company without risking further damage to our roadways and possible more serious accidents and stuff. So it's a little different situation. But if you don't want to vote on it tonight, I can understand that. But I think we do need to take this up. And the point of it is, if we do that, we're adding our voices to those who are wanting to defend our roadways and our citizens from bigger trucks. That's the reason to do it.
Yeah, I get that. Any other comments?
I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I just had a general question. Is it our, general policy to respond to every resolution request we get? Because I got to be honest with you, we got the same one in Harrisburg, and we get so many hundreds of thousands a year. I just thought it was another one, and I don't think anybody even responded. So is that our policy to?
Not everyone, but they specifically mentioned that Commissioner Pittman
I see.
was involved with it, and so I brought it forward because I knew it was a special interest to him.
Interesting.
Appreciate it.
Otherwise, if we see some local benefit, we may bring it to you. If we don't see any local benefit, we may or may not at that point, just depending on what the particular situation is. But this one was just special because Commissioner Pittman had asked or was involved with that process.
Well, and the more damage is done to our roadways, the more it's going to cost the taxpayers to fix it.
Commissioner Wortman?
I'd be okay with it going on consent.
Okay. Everybody okay with consent? Okay, we'll put that on the consent agenda for the 20th.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kyle. Moving to 5.13, opioid settlements overview and proposed spending authorization with Elise Pugh in Virginia. Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Evening, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting us this evening. If you don't mind passing the clicker, Virginia. As Commissioner Lindsay mentioned, my name is Elise Pugh, and this is Virginia Fagg. Virginia is our opioid settlements program manager. Our objective tonight is twofold. One is just to provide a refresher in regard to the opioid settlement, since we have a new commissioner on the board. And then the second objective is to request authorization for a new spending authorization that would allow us to extend funding for mainly some of our faith-based service providers, but we'll go over that in just a bit. But in terms of our, am I advancing? Oh, yes, I am. Thank you. Just going over the opioid settlements again. So this is part of the National Opioid Settlement Agreement. Several years ago, many attorneys general across the nation banded together to bring suit against major distributors and manufacturers of opioid prescription medications. They were successful in their venture. And for the state of North Carolina, this has resulted in approximately a distribution of $1.5 billion to North Carolina over the course of several years. In North Carolina, there was a memorandum of agreement, which we'll go over briefly, that kind of outlines how those funds can be distributed. 15% of that $1.5 billion will go to the state, and 80% of those funds go directly to local governments to spend in the ways that their communities feel are best. Here in Cabarrus County, we are slated to receive, the latest number that's on the website is that $22 million. But just earlier, or excuse me, in fall of last year, this board decided to sign on to a couple other settlements. So that number should increase. I don't think we have a figure yet, but it's probably going to be around 24 to 25 million between 2022 and 2038 for Cabarrus County.
Total. Correct.
But to date, as it's noted there, we've already received roughly $6.8 million, and the funds are front-loaded. If there's a question in terms of how those determinations were made about how much money went to each local government, it was based on a formula based on the number of pills that had been dispensed in that community, the number of opioid overdose deaths, and the number of people suffering from opioid use disorder. And at that time, Cabarrus County had been hard hit by the opioid epidemic. So just going out a little bit more detail in regard to Cabarrus County, kind of referenced this just a minute ago, but again, Cabarrus County had been hard hit. And so what we opted to do in Cabarrus County is to go through what's called the collaborative strategic planning process. This afforded us the opportunity to leverage the long list of strategies that we could utilize in our community. Without going through that collaborative strategic planning process, the list would be shorter in terms of the strategies that we could have leveraged, but we decided to go through that process, and we did that starting in late December of 2023 and concluded in June of 2024. We are required, based on our memorandum of agreement, to start that process over again, so we will be doing that this calendar year, probably around the July timeframe. As you can see, the estimated overdose death rate in Cabarrus County was 18.9 out of 100,000 residents in 2024, and that reflected a 20-some-odd% change from the year prior. So what we're doing collectively as a community appears to be working. Our number of overdose deaths has decreased. This is that memorandum of agreement and the different options that were available that I alluded to earlier. One was the option A is a list of 12 high impact strategies that any local government can adopt. And then there's a longer list of strategies that were under option B. And again, in order for us to be able to tap into those option B strategies, we needed to undergo the collaborative strategic planning process. And again, we have to redo it again this coming year. This just kind of outlines what the collaborative strategic planning process last time looked like for us. Again, it just started in December of 2023. It went through June of 2024. We hired a consulting firm to lead it for us, Health Management Associates, and we'll likely do something similar the second time with your approval. And then, as you can see, there were different components associated with the process. And then this next slide really outlines all of the different stakeholders that weighed in on how we, again, collectively as a community, opted to utilize these funds to address the opioid epidemic in Cabarrus County. These were the key takeaways from the first collaborative strategic planning process. And one of the things, just highlighting a couple of these, medication-assisted treatment rose as a top priority for Cabarrus County, secondary to that process. And then also things like wanting to educate our youth, work upstream, do more prevention efforts around addressing the opioid epidemic in our community. This is our strategic planning document. It can be found on our website. And it's the full comprehensive document from start to finish, outlining everything we have done and plan to do in Cabarrus County. And again, we will be updating that later this year after we conclude the second collaborative strategic planning process. Now I'm going to turn it over, before I do that, these were just some of the considerations associated with the funding from that first process in terms of what we are allowed to do under the memorandum of agreement. One of the things that I will highlight is the funds are intended to supplement and not supplant existing programs. So for instance, if there's already a program available in the community related to treatment of opioid or somehow management of opioid use disorders and it's being funded by a different funding stream, we can't just stop that funding stream and switch to opioid settlement dollars unless it's an extenuating circumstance. And we do have an example of that we'll talk about here in just a second. Now I'll turn it over to Virginia to talk about the strategies that we're currently funding.
Hello. So we have, I believe it's 18 different strategies total that we're, subrecipients, and that's including internal recipients. So like EMS, detention center, which is, and then, so for the strategy 1, strategic planning, that was HMA that fell under that strategy, who did the collaborative strategic plan. Me, opioid settlement program manager. And then additional trainings that are that's part of what we're asking for continued funding for county employees and some CHA employees to continue this training to build the program. And then with recovery support services, we have Cabarrus Health Alliance, Southeastern Recovery Center, Adult and Teen Challenge of the Sandhills, and then Bridge to Recovery. They all offer a variety of services, but those are going to be like inpatient or outpatient. Some of them are inpatient. They offer that opportunity for individuals to have residence there while they're in treatment. So for evidence-based addiction treatment, we've got Cabarrus Health Alliance. We also have EMS, which we forgot to include, but EMS has community paramedics that provide services locally, and that's part of sort of a bridging, like post-overdose kind of situation. Early intervention, Cabarrus County Schools, there's an individual who is a social worker to provide services for the PASS program as well as the Recovery High School, and also a program manager. For the addiction treatment for incarcerated persons, we partner with the detention center, and they have a separate contract with Southern Health Partners that provides that continuation of care for individuals that are in the detention center so that they're not going to miss out on their medication. Thank you. The reentry program, that is our focus for 2026. We are currently in the works with Captain Wallace, Dr. McKissick, and Sonia Behannon Thacker, Kristen Klingel-Smith, and myself. I feel like I missed somebody. But for the reentry, it's the Opioid Settlement Academy that meets every 2 months. So we're working to just get that program up and running. And then with the new Behavioral Health Center, that will go live to help connect people who need the help that they need. And then with the Sun Clinic, that's through Cabarrus Health Alliance, addressing the needs of pregnant or parenting women who are either in recovery or in active use. And then recovery housing support. Southeastern Recovery Center provides a long-term post-treatment option. And then we work with our marketing campaign and our first responders. For the marketing campaign is for just getting our brand out there, the core brand, and making sure that the community knows what we're doing, and they are aware. We really lean in on transparency and how we're using the money. And so working, with them to develop our website and our brand. And then for first responders who experience secondary trauma, we have Bingo. And if you've met Bingo, you know that was me. He's the best. And that's through EMS. And what we did with that, and Ian, sorry, Councilman. That was one of the newer initiatives that was part of the option B, and that's really to support our first responders with everything. And what we did was we paid for his training, and that's ultimately all. He's educated.
Thank you for that, Virginia. So I'll just go back for just a second, just to elucidate this a little bit more. So the recovery support services that Virginia was just talking about, those are our current providers. And we'll, again, make a pitch here in just a second to continue those services beyond this fiscal year, because the funding will run out for those service providers at the end of this fiscal year without an authorization from you all to extend the services into fiscal year 27. And then also just to highlight, a lot of these are option A strategies, but some of them are option B. So for instance, if we didn't do the collaborative strategic planning process and leverage those option B strategies, we wouldn't have been able to do things like continue to fund, the Sun Clinic. The Sun Clinic is providing services to pregnant or parenting women with substance use disorders. So that was strictly an option B strategy. As Virginia mentioned, the training for Bingo was also an option B strategy. We wouldn't have been able to leverage that, the marketing campaign and those kinds of things. So there's lots of opportunities for us when we are able to access that longer list of strategies by doing the option B. And then, as I already mentioned, we do need to sort of redo the process, simply because for collaborative strategic planning and option B, the funding can only be authorized for up to 3 years. So we will expire on our time limit for those option B strategies next year. And so that's why we need to do the process over again and start ahead of time, so that if the community decides they want to continue with those services, then there won't be a lapse in service in terms of the authorization, if that makes sense. And then just also wanted to mention to you all that of the roughly, again, anywhere between 23 to 24 million that we ultimately received, we've allotted for about half of that funding. So we still have roughly between 12 to 13 million dollars that we have yet to decide how those funds can be utilized. So any questions about that before we shift gears a little bit and answer any questions that you might have about our new spending authorization? All right, wonderful. So you have a proposal in front of you, or you should as part of your packet. It's the one that has CORE at the top, the branding for our opioid initiatives here in Cabarrus County that Virginia just alluded to. as well as our logo for Health and Human Services. And it really kind of describes those different programs that we're hoping to extend the funding for into fiscal year '27. Again, a lot of these are our faith-based providers that provide community support services. I know Commissioner Lindsay, you recently went to a fundraiser associated with that, and so it was about a year ago that we first authorized those providers, and they've been doing wonderful services for us, and they each have asked us for some additional dollars so that they can continue those services into fiscal year '27.
Yeah, I was going to speak to the Adult Teen Challenge. I did have an opportunity to attend that. I guess it was a banquet, and they had folks that had participated in that program, and it's a faith-based program. Really incredible stories of those folks who were able to get their children back, who are working now, and just amazing stories of being able to get off of these opioids and drugs and just excel in life. So it was very emotional for sure. So it was a great opportunity.
It's very powerful stories. And so our ask is for, again, as Virginia already mentioned, the first one would be, if you scroll up for just a little bit for me. There you go. Our first ask is to add some additional funding for training, as Virginia mentioned, for Cabarrus County employees. And then the second ask would be to extend the funding for those, again, primarily faith-based service providers that we started funding about this time last year. And we're happy to answer any questions in regard to extending the funding for both of those.
Commissioners, do you have any questions? Commissioner Patrick?
I just had one on the language. Excuse me, in section G, under providers, it just says TBD, community organizations. Is that typical language in our resolutions?
question.
That seems very
That's a great
vague.
question. You ask a lot of great questions. Thank you. Do you want to answer? Or you want me to? Okay. So in working with our legal team and our finance team, it's one of those where we want to make sure that we are covering all the bases as far as, well, if a need arose between now and 2027, we were able to still provide a service or adjust that so that they
Or
said.
add a new service
Add a
provider.
new service, excuse me, yes. To be able to provide that without spending another 25 minutes talking to you. But that also would be within the parameters of that strategy. So, whether it's a peer support specialist or adding an additional peer support specialist, for example. I know Cabarrus Health Alliance is amazing, and they grow rapidly, and they see things, and they project. And so, for example, I would use that as an example. If they thought, okay, well, we really feel like we need an additional person, then could we utilize that in that way? Okay, that wasn't a great example because
No, I
Cabarrus Health
understand.
Alliance is listed on the list, but.
I think to answer your question,
They just, these are, all the organizations that we have, reasonable organizations have been vetted, this kind of stuff. And it's odd for a resolution to have this type of language in it because it's already an amendment to a resolution. You just come back and add another amendment if you need additional providers. But it says that this governing body must approve these things. And so I don't want to put a quote-unquote blank check, especially with federal dollars that could potentially be abused.
So let me clarify.
Yeah.
Every penny of this money is from those private distributors and manufacturers. None of this is taxpayer dollar.
Right, I'm sorry, from the settlement, yeah, I
Yes,
understand that.
yes.
So I misspoke on that, but I'm
Yep.
just saying, this body has got to approve it. And so
Correct.
just an open-ended, hey, go get whoever you want as a provider, just odd to me.
Yeah, and so again, as Virginia mentioned, it's just a provision for us if there was another service provider who approached us and wanted to provide support under this strategy, since this board has already approved the strategy, we could then potentially add another service provider. And as you already mentioned, Virginia would do her due diligence in terms of vetting another provider.
We have to, I was gonna say, we have to vet it through the opioid settlement technical assistance team.
Yeah.
So everything that we've done up to this point has gone through them. And then this is the sign of approval.
Madam Chair, you're the one who has to sign it. It seems unprofessional to me to have that kind of language in a resolution.
And I do have a question about this Cabarrus core. So one of the things I'm curious about is when it says provide education. What education are we providing, and are we paying outside sources to come in and educate our employees or whoever on a specific program or specific entity that we're giving money to somebody else to come and train? Like, I would really like to know more about what exactly we're training them.
Sure.
With this
If you don't
money.
mind, I'll take a stab at this one. So the core was actually established by our work group. It was an internal work group. And so there was an effort in collaboration with communication to come up with branding for our Cabarrus County opioid settlement initiatives. And this is what that core group decided that they wanted it to be titled as. So that's how the entire core came about. In terms of the education piece, as we have already been talking about, anything that we utilize, we have to get approval from you all. So it has to be one of those approved strategies in order for us to execute it. In terms of what we're doing right now in terms of education, as we already mentioned, Strategy 6 has already been authorized by the board through a previous resolution. And encompassed within that, we have the opportunity to educate school children. We have the opportunity to educate teenagers about opioid use disorders.
Which is great. I mean, that's absolutely great. I just want to make sure that if we're training on anything else, that I want to make sure I'm not given permission to train on something that somebody might have issue with
I understand
moving
what you're saying.
forward.
So it has to align with the MOA. Any sort of training has to align with the MOA. It has to be directly related to what the North Carolina MOA outlines. And that's why I was saying everything that we do and when we communicate with you all, that's coming from having previous conversations with the opioid settlement technical assistance team through the Board of Commissioners for North Carolina.
And the training that is currently authorized is called mental health first aid. So it is an evidence-based curriculum that we're planning to utilize with teenagers within both Kannapolis City Schools and Cabarrus County Schools. There's
So-
actually 3 different types. There's one for adults, there's one for adults working with youth, and there's also a last one, and this is the one that we're hoping to be able to utilize, is for teens to educate teens.
Do y'all have any other concerns? I mean, I obviously take to heart Commissioner Patrick's concern with it being to be decided.
And
Doug?
I don't think we have any objective to removing that.
Yeah, I didn't draft this, first of all. I'm not sure where it came from, but.
Doug, can you look at it and give me your
I've looked at it prior
expert
to
opinion?
today. I looked at it when the agenda packet came out. But, yeah, if you all, it sounds like you all are saying we'd be happy to take it.
We don't have a problem with it. Yeah, that was a recommendation from the OSTAT team, but they certainly wouldn't be opposed to us removing it. So, and I'm not, yeah.
Do you mind if I
Not at all.
have, would you mind going over it with a fine tooth comb?
Sure.
Before I sign it?
And I've been reading through it as we all sit here and
Okay.
discuss it. But yes, if you all approve it tonight, we can certainly, with your permission, we can strike that line.
Well, we wouldn't have
before
to
it's
approve it
signed.
tonight anay, right? This
Nope.
is
I didn't know
just-
what
Not
you
at
were
all.
doing. If you were
Yeah.
doing it
And
tonight,
the other
okay.
thing that I will just add is this is a template. This is a standard template that is provided to us by OSTAT. So we always use their standard template, and then we just fill in the information as appropriate, so.
Gotcha. Commissioner Pittman?
I just wondering, with the concerns that have been expressed, maybe this needs to be an action item,
Oh, yeah.
not consent agenda. I just want to make sure about that.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
for sure. Thank you. All right, so we'll put that on the action agenda. And Doug, if you don't mind,
Absolutely.
your expertise.
Yeah, I'll talk to Virginia about it.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
We'll have it ready for you.
Okay. All right, so we will move to 5.14. Elise?
Yes.
Resolution for establishing the Regional Behavioral Health Center Advisory Board.
Correct. So this is in regard to our Regional Behavioral Health Center. In our agreement with the operator Monarch, we indicated that we would be establishing an advisory board, and now is the time for us to do that, since the center will be launching in June of 2026, June of this year. And so this would be an 11-member board. An 11-member board. 4 of the board members would be related to Cabarrus County, 3 of which are related to roles associated with Cabarrus County, and that 4th position would be a commissioner liaison. And then 3 of those board members would be appointed by Monarch, who is the operator of the center. And then once those 7 individuals have been established, then those 7 would determine 4 other board members, whatever parameters they would like to utilize in terms of deciding those other members of the board to make up an 11-member board altogether.
So one question I do have, so we already have a mental health advisory.
Correct.
Board.
Correct.
What would it, could we combine those two? That way we don't have 2 separate.
So the agreement that we have with the operator does delineate what this board would look like, that it was an 11-member board. And the one wrinkle with that idea is that Monarch has the authorization to appoint 3 of the board members based on our current agreement. The other 4 positions that are more county-related, we could certainly draw from members of the Mental Health Advisory Board for those 4 individuals.
Yeah.
But Monarch would have sort of the authority to be able to appoint 3 of those members. And then again, the way that it's worded, it's then those 7 individuals, once those 7 individuals have been identified, they would then decide on the additional 4 members as a board.
Commissioner Pittman?
Yes, I want to make sure this is action item, not consent agenda, please.
Okay. Yes, sir. So would it be feasible, though, to, I guess my question is, if we're going to have this board, do we need to continue to have other said board? Because we have a lot of boards that we're liaisons to.
So this board will be specifically dealing with the Behavioral Health Center and that only.
And that only?
Yes.
Okay.
And so currently, we don't have members from Monarch that
Right.
are appointed to
Yes.
that. I think there's
We have a representative, but
Yes.
not someone who's in a seat.
the Mental Health Advisory Board deals with the broader issues. So there's overlap, but it's not quite the same.
Okay.
We would have to make some adjustments in one or the other in order to pull that off.
Yeah. Well, and I get it. I mean, Monarch has a vested interest in this. Obviously, they're our partner, so I understand that. I'm just trying to think for the commissioners with the number of boards that we're liaisons to and committees, like how we could maybe combine some of those efforts, because it's a difficult task to get to all these committees and board meetings. Commissioner Patrick?
If you're going to put it in an action item, can we get a copy of that agreement in the packet for the 20th?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Elise. Any other questions? Y'all good? Okay. All right. So we will move on to 5.15, resolution for maintenance of Stallings Road. Ms. Sifford?
Thank you. Our city attorney, town attorney, reached out to me regarding this. They have been working on this apparently for a while. There is a map in the attachment that shows a section of Stallings Road that the town would like to take over maintenance from the state. And they expressed that their interest was around the maintenance of that area and to be able to do enhanced landscaping along the roadside without, I guess, tangling up under the restrictions of the state NCDOT. And it looked like Susie has something to add to this.
Yeah, so that's correct. So what the town would like to do is they would like, they're not abandoning the right-of-way, as in what you would typically see that we would bring to you. They are just specifically abandoning the maintenance of this particular section of Stallings so that the town can take it on. Like Manager Sifford said, they do want some additional flexibility with this section of the road. For example, there's a roundabout there. They would like to be able to enhance that roundabout. That is something that DOT does not allow. So typically what you have before you is additions to the state system. In this case, they are actually asking for a removal from the state system. And they need a resolution to support that. That's what they've been advised from DOT.
Yes.
Looking at you, Commissioner Patrick.
I begged them not to do this. I said, why would you assume responsibility of maintenance of a road that the state is paying for? But they wanted the landscaping, and I voted against it, but give it to them.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Pittman?
So DOT's fine with this then?
DOT is requesting the resolution. That's the best that we can do. And then it would have to go to the Transportation Board in Raleigh to make the final decision. In this particular area, so the blue that you see is the municipal limits, but those white areas are still unincorporated county properties, but they are ETJ properties. So essentially, Harrisburg has all of the planning and zoning jurisdiction in this area. And again, why they just want the flexibility, I suppose, to be able to do the
Plantings.
enhancements without jumping through the hoops that DOT would require to do that.
Okay, so we're not really clear on what DOT thinks about it. They just require this resolution for it.
Correct,
For the
but
act on it.
it's less money for them because they wouldn't have to maintain it anymore. The town's taking on that
Does
responsibility.
this have something to do too with that area where they just planted on the Mecklenburg coming in on 49?
No, that was a grant project for
Okay.
like beautification. I think
Gotcha.
they want to do some things maybe in the roundabout and some other things. and
Okay.
There's some DOT rules they're trying to get around, basically. I didn't want the maintenance on the taxpayers, but again, I voted against it, but they voted for it.
Yes, DOT does not like, when you have a roundabout situation, they do not like anything that attracts people into that roundabout, because it is intended to keep the traffic moving. So in this particular case, I'm not sure if it has a crosswalk associated with it or a pedestrian refuge associated with it. But DOT definitely is not a fan of anything that attracts people to that because it kind of defeats the purpose of keeping the traffic moving around the roundabout.
Makes sense. Any other questions? We good with putting this on consent? Yay? I mean, Harrisburg wants it, right?
I'll tell you anything you want to know about it. I don't think it's a smart idea, but it doesn't do anything to the county.
Well, just sounds like to me there's some questions need to be answered and we may need to make an action item for
Okay.
that reason.
We can do that. We'll put that on action. And
Do you want someone from Harrisburg at our meeting to answer your questions?
That'll probably be helpful.
Okay, well, we'll reach out to their staff and ask them to attend our meeting.
And we'll have to tell them not to fuss at Ian for making them have to be there.
So wait a minute.
Okay, all right, so we'll put that on action. All right, moving to, thank you, Susie. We'll move to 5.16, Behavioral Health Center. Elise? Get your steps in today.
So this is in regard to an additional $2.5 million that the Department of Health and Human Services at the state level has awarded us. Since this is a regional behavioral health center, they wanted to help us in terms of defraying some of the soft costs, i.e. furniture, things of that nature associated with the center. So this is just a budget amendment affording us the opportunity to accept those funds.
We're good with accepting money, so consent, you guys with consent? Okay. All right. Thank you, Elise. All right, so we'll move to 5.17 with Suzanne Moose, transfer furniture to the Cabarrus Health Alliance. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. How are you?
Good.
I wanted to bring to you today a little summary of transferring some furniture from the Dream Center over to Cabarrus Health Alliance. In 2019, we partnered with Cabarrus Health Alliance to sublease space at what is known as the Dream Center, which is over on the Concord Parkway, for an additional location of service, economic services within the Department of Social Services. Our Cabarrus County Social Services has reviewed the service data and concluded that the need for services at this location is not needed. It has definitely decreased. And therefore, we did not renew our lease for that space at the Dream Center. And Cabarrus Health Alliance is expanding their services there. So since they're expanding their services there, we had to move or look within everything that we had there at the Dream Center, which included cubicles, furniture, etc. And there were several items that we're not going to use anywhere within the county, and that was like 4 cubicles with walls and some desks, a couple desks, 3 desks, and a filing cabinet. The cost of this is less than $5,000. And just to let you know, the transfer of these items that I've notated, and also place some pictures or photos for you to see within your packet, would actually be better than having to pay an outside vendor to come and take all the things down, move it, and there's nowhere to move it to. So, any questions on that?
Consent? All right. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Moving to 5.18, Social Services Family Support Cabarrus Health Alliance Grant Funds. Laura, good evening.
Good evening. So I'm bringing forth tonight a budget amendment request. The Department of Social Services was awarded an additional $15,000 for the Elevate grant, which focuses on high-risk populations to be able to advance health resources for adolescents, their families, and communities. So this is a 5-year grant that we are awarded originally $15,000 every year for the next 5 years through the Cabarrus Health Alliance. The grant started July of 2023 and will run through 2028. So these funds are in addition to the allocation of $15,000 that we will be awarded the next 5 years. So specifically, these funds we plan to use to cover operating cost, hygiene products, clothing such as uniforms, and these are going to be specifically for youth ages 13 to 19. In total, we will be awarded for this fiscal year $30,000, but specifically coming to you tonight with an additional $15,000 for the budget amendment, and no county match will be required. Any questions for me?
Consent? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, moving on to Doug. We've got 2. One is conveying 2 properties to the Board of Education.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So, under GS 115C 521, the Board of Education is required to hold title to school facilities. But as you all touched on earlier in your discussion with Rosh, we are primarily responsible for providing funding for capital outlay. And so one common way to do that across the state in all the counties is to borrow money using installment financing, just like you would do with your house. But for us to give a deed of trust on a school property, we have to then get title to the property from the school board. So finance maintains an Excel spreadsheet of which properties do not have any financing on them. Those are the ones that should be vested in the name of the Board of Education. Then we have a list of properties that are under a deed of trust and which deed of trust it is, which installment financing it was, and what the date is that financing should come off that property. So back in, I think, May of last year, the board approved a resolution. We had a number of properties come off of financing, so we needed to convey them back to the Board of Education. And the board, it was the May 19th meeting, the board approved transferring a number of properties back to the Board of Education. We have already, those have already been prepared and recorded, except there were 2 properties that the financing has come off of them, but they were missed in that resolution. So that's what we're bringing before you tonight. It's Northwest Cabarrus STEM Middle School. That deed of trust has been canceled. I've verified that the cancellation's recorded. And Cox Mill Elementary School is the second one, and I verified that deed of trust has been canceled. So that's what we're requesting for your consideration, is authorizing the county manager to sign these 2 deeds for these 2 properties to get them back in the name of the Board of Education, where statutorily they should remain until and unless we need to borrow against those properties in the future.
Any questions? Consent? All right. And then we also have 5.20, extension of lease St. Stephen's Church Road property.
Yes, thank you. So this is the St. Stephen's Road Park. So it's the 616-acre parcel. In 2021, you all leased 138.5 acres to Land and Barrier at $7,500 a year. That expires March 31st of this year. He wants to renew it. His current lease does not, the language did not call for an automatic renewal, but it specifically said the parties may renew for an additional 5 years if they so desire. So we thought the course of action that was needed was to bring it back before you all for approval of that. The $7,500 per year is what he's currently paying. Ms. Sifford might be able to answer any more questions about that if you have any. My understanding from our conversations is Daniel McClellan with Soil and Water, and I don't think Daniel's here, but Daniel has drilled down on that for us. He came up with that figure. That's the going rate for this number of acres for row crops, I believe is what we discussed.
Correct. That's the actual area that is able to be farmed, that is in row crops, and that is the going rate for that type of service, type of lease.
And of course, additional benefits for the county in extending the lease, which is totally up to you, is it lessens the maintenance burden on the county, because you probably wouldn't want it to be totally overgrown. And of course, there's people out there doing the farming, so there's people out there putting eyes on the property and that type of thing. And we do have other people out there, neighboring property owners who, make some use of it as well, not for any type of income earning potential, but it's being watched by a number of neighbors, I guess we'll put it that way.
You guys okay with consent? All right, we'll move that to consent agenda also. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to move to 5.21. This is Commissioner Board appointments. So as you know, we have multiple boards that we sit on and committees. I have spoken with all of the commissioners regarding our current committees that we do sit on as liaisons or voting members. I think this is the updated, Ari, is this the updated one? Okay. So just a couple of changes to it. Commissioner Patrick has agreed to take on Commissioner Shue's previous boards and committees that he served on. Commissioner Wortman asked to be removed from, and not because he doesn't like it, let me just make sure that y'all understand that, it's because of you're welcome, because of scheduling conflicts for the library and the city of Kannapolis. So I have put myself in those positions for now. And then a couple of other things. So I'm changing, planning and zoning is now going to be Commissioner Patrick. That is his expertise, so it certainly makes more sense for him to be on that. And then also on the water and sewer, Commissioner Patrick is going to be on that as well. So I think everything else has pretty much stayed the same. Commissioner Pittman and Commissioner Jones didn't have any changes that they necessarily needed to make to anything, so I think. It is not in the packet, you're right. Yes, yes, we will have that sent out for sure. It's always good to have a good, updated printout of that anyway. Sometimes it's hard to remember what committees I've even signed my own self up for. Commissioner Pittman?
I just will say, I've enjoyed working with the ones I've been working with, and unless they want me replaced, I'm fine.
I've had no requests for any commissioner to be replaced by anybody else. And I know that it is incredibly time-consuming to do these, so I thank you all for those commitments that you have made as liaisons to those specific boards and committees. So we just need to put that on the consent agenda, is that right? Or do we even, yeah, consent? Okay, okay, thank you. All right, so we will move on to our policy reviews. So 5.22, Board of Commissioners Appointment Policy. Doug, I'm going to let you speak to some of these, because it doesn't indicate really who was going to speak on these, but I know that we've had conversation about different changes that we wanted to make to these policies, so we'll start with the appointment policy. Is there anything on there that?
Yes, so just for background, for anybody listening, the board directed that I send these 4 policies to all the board members so you all could review them as part of your annual policy review. And so I just basically was a clearinghouse for comments. I received comments from Commissioner Pittman on the economic development policy that we'll get to. And then on the appointment policy, I received the track changes version, which is on the screen, from Commissioner Patrick. And so aside from that, I guess I would ask Commissioner Patrick if he wants to touch on his comments and the things that he was suggesting. I certainly, I don't have any problem legally with any of the changes that have been proposed by anybody to any of the 4 policies. But if you care to, Commissioner Patrick.
Yeah, I think this one was minimal for me. I think it was more about term lengths. I think they were 6 years, and I dropped them from 6 to 4. I don't know what that does to any of the, I didn't cross-check it and see what that did to anybody's terms, but it seemed like a reasonable expectation that they would line up with elections in some way. My only concern with making those suggestions, and they were just suggestions, is that you could lose institutional knowledge when things started changing hands. And so I'm not tied, specifically on this policy, I'm not tied to those markups, but I thought it was worth a discussion and seeing what the implications might be.
Yeah, and I definitely think, I mean, we've had conversation previously about making sure that we are allowing folks who haven't necessarily served before, serve in these appointment positions on our committees. So it is definitely, did you all have an opportunity to take a look at those changes? That were any issues or concerns regarding it?
And if I may add, if you haven't noticed, you've got a paper copy of everything in front of you, because that was before the good idea to put things on the screen. But I'm not sure, you know, when you preview a Word document versus fully downloading it, sometimes track changes don't come through. I don't know that what's up on the screen is going to show the track changes, but you do have the paper color hard copies in front of you if you need them. There it is, yeah. So it's up there. And then there was one change on the next page, and then
Ad hocs, yeah. Yeah, I didn't see why ad hoc committees wouldn't have similar requirements. It seems like a smart thing to do to try to normalize all your stuff, but you guys have been at it longer than me. This was just a cursory review.
All right. Any other recommendations that you guys have that you want to state now, or we can put these on the action agenda for the 20th. That way, as you're looking through this, if something else comes to mind and you want to make those changes, we can certainly do that. But these are the suggestions that we have thus far. Okay, so we'll put that on the action agenda, and we'll move to the next one, which is the Economic Development Grant Program.
Yes, Madam Chair. And so on this one, similarly, you've got a document in front of you as well as possibly on the screen. The blue track changes were submitted by Commissioner Patrick. Again, this policy is entirely within your purview legally. There's no issue with any of these changes. So it's up to you all as a board to decide what you want to do. And then Commissioner Pittman had sent a comment or two to me and then sent some additional comments. The Madam Chair to me.
Yes.
And that's what I'm looking for here. I made those changes today and those appeared in red. But I'm not seeing them.
There was just a couple of things that you had just wanted to remove.
What the
red-
change was on the top of page 9. And yeah, maybe I should let you address that.
No, blue ones were mine, and it looks like you incorporated
Correct.
Larry's
Yes.
as in the red ones.
Oh, it's on yours, it's
Yeah.
not on mine.
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
So, yeah, in that paragraph 2 on page 9, this is talking about, for the benefit of people listening who don't have it in front of them, it's talking about what happens when a grant application is completed. And so I think the changes proposed by Commissioner Pittman and Commissioner Patrick, of course, work together. They dovetail together. And so the way the changes would read is that when the application is completed by the applicant, the Board of Commissioners will review it and determine if it should be scheduled for a public hearing. So of course, there has to be a public hearing before you can grant an economic development incentive. The prior arrangement was the Cabarrus Economic Development Board, in consultation with the Board of Commissioners, would review it and determine if it's appropriate for a public hearing. But of course, I think the thinking here is you all are the ones doing the public hearing. So you should have more authority, I guess, be in the driver's seat for determining what public hearing you're going to be conducting. But I'd welcome either one of you gentlemen to correct that if I've got that wrong, or
So,
flesh that out more.
Page 3, I just thought the language didn't belong in a policy document. It was just like really flowery language. It was like, okay, this is let's stick to the facts here. So those were just, leave it in if you want. That was just, the language seemed odd to be in a document like that. Page 4, it talked about lead design. Lead has been dead for nobody uses it in 10 years. They're all using different standards now. So if you want to be sustainable, fine, but that language is just not useful anymore. And then I took out a alternative fuel energy line item there. Grant parameters, I basically just said it's at our discretion. And we've always had this sort of 80% rule in there. And it's just like, well, whatever makes sense, let's hash it out. And then that basically filtered down to the next part of that paragraph. And then I said the grant period would be as negotiated. Took out some other items that I think should just be negotiated as we go through it. I did have a question in section 4, item 1, calculated as a percentage ad valorem tax. I think that needs some discussion, or someone smarter than me needs to explain to me what that language means.
And I, in response to your comment on that, Commissioner Patrick, I did want to make sure, I think Mr. Thrift might be the best person to address that. And it actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the explanation we got earlier from
Is
you
that
and
the
Rosh,
answer to that?
I think was the answer, but I want to let Mr. Thrift tell us if we conveniently delved into that discussion earlier.
This is in reference to the description of the, just so I'm clear before I answer, I want to make sure I know where we're answering.
Value criterion is what it says.
Let me,
Keep going.
I may need to hand him or get on there.
Keep going.
Page 5.
6
The va-
in the
okay.
document.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's a description of the county choosing the value criterion for a program as the estimated property tax assessment, is that when we talk about what the establishment of the incentive is, it's a percentage of the assessed value, the taxes they're paying. So the criteria for that in an ad valorem tax system is the value of the property.
Okay.
It's more descriptive as to what the property is the
That's
program
what-
is talking.
That's what you see my note. I have no idea what that meant. It was very legalese to me, so. And then I took out speculative buildings entirely. I don't know why we'd be giving economic grants for that. That's just odd to me. Like, if you want to bring a company in, great, but you're just going to start building buildings and hoping people put things in them? It just seemed very odd to me. 4.2, that just seemed redundant to me, that language, but an attorney probably needs to look at that language.
I agree. It's redundant.
And then there was one about staff can assess impact to local schools and infrastructure, and that sounded suspiciously like an impact fee, but maybe the grantees are willing to waive that state ban on impact fees in order to get what they want. I didn't know if that needed to be addressed since the impact fee legislation was completed.
Right. I think we need to probably drill down on that a little more to be sure, but I'm okay with that as it stands now, because this is something you don't have to offer at all. You know, with an impact fee, you're mandating a fee.
Right.
For somebody to do something here, this is totally a voluntary program. Nobody has to apply for this. We don't have to provide it at all. So it's totally voluntary, and I think it's just subject to negotiation between the parties. I think as a practical matter, that kind of thinking probably goes into these types of decisions anyway, whether it's, stated or not. So that doesn't cause me any kind of concern from a legal standpoint.
I'll let Commissioner Pittman talk about his, but the final ones on page 9 were just that we wanted the public hearing, we wanted to give the public 14 days prior, we wanted them to know the terms, and then we didn't want a vote to occur on the same night as the public hearing. I don't think it's fair to present it, have the public comment on it, and then immediately vote without taking into consideration or input. So I just said, have the public comment, have the meeting, and then at the next meeting, you can have your vote to give people time to give their input. And those were my comments, and I'll let Commissioner Pittman talk about his.
I don't remember the exact wording of what I said to you, but I can sum it up in a way you know what I'm going to say, is there should be no connection between the government and the EDC, and any reference to them should be eliminated from any of our policies, because we shouldn't be giving them taxpayer money. If the EDC wants to try to get business to come in here, Chamber of Commerce wants to work with them, that's fine. Let them do it on their own money, let them pay for it, not the taxpayers. That's basically the gist of what I was saying. So we shouldn't even have reference to them in our policies.
Any other questions or comments? We'll put this on action as well. Action, okay.
Oh, and just to be clear, on any of these, I didn't go back and check that the section heading numbers were fixed, so someone should probably do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go.
That guy right there. All right, so we'll move on to 5.24, public participation policy.
And on this document that you have in front of you, these are Commissioner Patrick's proposed changes, and legally, I'm fine with the changes. And I think most, if not all of the changes really are necessary under the new decision from the Court of Appeals out of Avery County, which I emailed to you all,
Yes.
I think, a couple of weeks ago. And I don't know if I sent the decision to you, but I'm sure I sent you the School of Government where they took apart the decision, and that was really more helpful than reading the actual court decision. But the short version of it is, we now, with this new case out of the Court of Appeals, now have a divergence of Fourth Circuit Federal Court of Appeals case law, which we are a part of the Fourth Circuit, versus North Carolina state case law. So this was a case of first impression, if you will, by the Court of Appeals. The facts, very briefly, was that somebody unfurled a vulgar banner in the back of a Board of Commissioners meeting, insulting someone who is incorrectly referred to in the court opinion as a commissioner, but she was actually the clerk to the board, so she was not an elected official. She was an employee, and the person was removed, or they attempted to ask the person to leave. He refused to leave. He was arrested, tried, convicted, and appealed. So it's a little bit of a different situation because it got to the Court of Appeals because it was an appeal of a criminal conviction, but they still went through all this to say that there was no factual basis for saying that his language was disruptive or anything like that. So, and they specifically distanced our state from this Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals body of law, which says you can place limitations on personal ad hominem attacks. So that is still federal case law, but the Court of Appeals has said we're not going to follow that in North Carolina. So I think Commissioner Patrick's changes, again, if he had not proposed them, when I first read that from the School of Government, I thought, okay, we need to work on some changes. So I think these changes are necessary to comply with that new Court of Appeals ruling. And as you can see, of course, I'll let Commissioner Patrick address his own changes further, but as you can see, there's still a fair amount of language in there just aimed at conducting an orderly meeting and that type of thing, some other basic ground rules that I think you all want in place.
Sounds to me like we need some new Court of Appeals judges if they didn't go along with that decision.
The only disagreement I have with Commissioner Patrick's is on page 2, the sign-up sheet. I would still like to see the cards, because if we have a sheet that people are filling out their name and phone number on, then that, anybody that signs up can have access to those people's phone numbers and stuff. So I would feel more comfortable still using the cards compared to a sign-up sheet.
That's fair.
It also allows, and I don't know if this was your intention, but it also allows people to sign up late, because occasionally we will have people that hear somebody else speak and want to respond to it. And so if we have a sign-up sheet that the clerk is holding, they won't have access to it.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair. It made it easier when we did it on other boards. The chair would have one piece of paper as opposed to 30 cards in their hand, but, you know, it doesn't make any difference. But yeah, I just think as public officials, we should just have to deal with the insults we get, and the court agreed with me, so.
That's what the Court of Appeals said.
Yeah.
And one other thing that I did want to ask you all about, I don't see that this policy talks about when people can sign up for comments. So I don't have an opinion on what that should be. That's up to you all, but I might suggest we go ahead and put that in writing. You know, oftentimes you have to sign up before the meeting starts in a lot of counties and cities. My understanding is we've been allowing people to sign up through the end of public comments, just like you just said. If they hear a speaker and they decide they want to respond or add to it, they can get up during public comments and sign up. And if that's what you all want to do, that's great, but I might suggest you put in writing exactly when the cutoff is, just so that's clear and it's in writing and everybody understands what the rule is.
So would we put, like, the cutoff would be after the last person has spoken? Last card has
Yeah.
been read?
Yeah, I guess after the last speaker begins.
I mean, we haven't really had, correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't had much of an issue with that piece of it, because we try to be very, we allow everybody to speak as much as possible, so.
Yeah, I think we generally are, well, that was our last speaker, so I guess at that point, that's kind of the declaration at that point is over, you know, for sign up for that time, and maybe, you know, we make it as part of the policy that once that statement's declared, that was the last speaker.
Well, what if you said, when the last speaker you have gets up, before they speak, say, this is our last speaker, so if you want to say anything, speak now, forever hold your peace.
I could do that,
Something like that.
yeah. I mean, if Ari gives me the
Yeah, she'll have to make sure she's queuing you up.
head nod or something, I'm fine
I mean, we're
with
trying to
that.
be fair. you know.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Okay, any other,
Nothing more for me unless
Okay.
Commissioner Patrick had anything to add.
anybody else want to add to that? And we'll just put that on action, or? All right. Okay, and then we will move to 5.25, rules of procedure.
And again, I went through Commissioner Patrick's track changes, and certainly legally, they're all completely fine. This is your policy, and it's up to you to make changes to it as you see fit. I do see, just in brief, of course, he's correcting some things that were just plain out of date, like, because we didn't have this review last year, I
Right,
don't believe,
we
at all.
didn't. We did not.
And this is the first review that I've participated in, but correcting some things such as your meeting times, which you had tweaked a year ago.
Right.
And that type of thing.
And we've
Calling
also
for-
removed the remote participation, which is something we had wanted to
Mhm.
do for quite some time.
Yeah, I think that was the heart of it, and then correcting just a couple of more typos or repetitive provisions. But Commissioner Patrick, did you want to add anything to what has been circulated?
No, I think some of it was just trying to get some agendas out sooner. You know, I think tonight's was 240 some odd pages or whatever, and just seemed like not a lot of time for us to review it. We all have full-time jobs as well, and so we're doing this after we get our kids to bed at night and some more time. You know, the public wants the same time as well to look at it. You talked about remote participation. I did add the similar thing that I said about the other one, which is that if you're going to do a public comment, you should really take the vote at the next meeting. I don't know if you guys want to entertain that or not, but I think that's only fair to the public, that they get to say their piece, then you have to go sleep on it for a week and get the emails and digest it and make those calls the next meeting. That could be a work session. I don't think it has to necessarily see regular meeting.
I think we might have to adjust our budget public hearing. We have multiple opportunities, but I think the final one is typically right before the vote. So we may have to do some adjustment in order to make that happen so that everything happens on time.
You had a spare meeting in there though,
We-
right?
yes,
So you
we-
just have to take the spare, I think,
Yeah,
and use it.
Yeah, and that's fine if that's okay with you. I think we just need to check all of the statutes related to that, make sure we've got every hearing time, like we have to do it the same night or not, but we'll double check on that.
Some other typos. Yeah, there was a withdrawal motion that just seemed odd to me, like it said a member introduces a motion may withdraw the motion unless the motion has been amended or put to a vote. And it was like, you guys are tying your hands too much. This is supposed to be 5 people that can talk openly and honestly with each other in front of the public, and all these kind of rules, I think, just restrict democracy, and it's supposed to be messy, and we're supposed to be talking and conversing, and it just seemed very draconian, so that's why I changed most of the rest of these. That's it.
So we will put that on action as well. Like I said, in between now and the 20th, if you guys have any questions about any of these or additions or subtractions you want to make, then we can have discussion on that. And then hopefully by the 20th, we can have the policies in place to be able to vote on.
Yes.
So, okay. All right, I do need a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda on page 278.
So moved.
Second? Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and we do have a need for a closed session, so I do need a motion to go into closed session per NCGS 143-318.11, A3, 4, and 6, to consult with an attorney for economic development and personnel.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we are in closed session.